This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar. Hello, everybody. Nailed it. Joined as always by our Barth. That's a fit. That's a match. No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
When I don't know if people can see this on camera. When you watch him on the field, it's like the same mannerism. It's going to be really because for you, I just brought it up because
he's from Omaha.
I just brought it up because I heard Nebraska and we have 10 minutes to go. But it's also I don't know.
We had some real stuff to talk about.
I know we did. Well, you got annoyed with the kickers.
This is not the show I wanted to do today, Alex. I'm just gonna come right out and say it. This was not the show I wanted to do today. I wanted to do a show where we were both checking our phones every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a show that Brandon Aiyuk was a Patriot, but I would have settled for doing a show where Brandon Aiyuk might be a Patriot.
Could still be a Patriot.
Could still be a Patriot. There was still hope in the air that he could be a Patriot. Doing a show after late last night, Adam Schefter tweets out that the Patriots have removed themselves from the Brandon Aiyuk sweepstakes is not the show I wanted to do. You know, there's like a common, and I don't think that this show falls under this category because people know where our allegiances are.
Yeah.
But there's this common thing that like the media likes it when the team is bad, right? Or they like it when things like this happen that they can rag on the team about. That's not this show. This show would love to have Brandon Aiyuk as a New England Patriot and would love to be talking about the prospects of Brandon Aiyuk being a New England Patriot. And that's not where we're at. That's not where we're at. And I want to lay out the facts of the case here quickly.
Yeah.
Because this is right off the top of the show. We're getting right into it.
I think people have cranked it right up to a 10 with this. And I'm not saying don't be disappointed. You can be disappointed, but
I'm disappointed.
I think people have lost sight of the bigger picture.
Okay, we'll get to that take in a second because I want to see where you're going with that. But I want to lay out the facts because right now, understandably so, there are a lot of upset people that this fell through. I get it. The other night, I was asleep. I went to bed early. It's training camp. I was tired. I had like 6 text messages from you in the morning when I woke up at 6:30 telling me that Brandon Aiyuk might be a Patriot. It's actually happening. I tweeted out the gif from The Office of, Michael Scott running around. It's okay. It's happening, right? And the report was it was the Browns and the Patriots that were at the top of the list in the pursuit of Brandon Aiyuk. And unfortunately, fact number 1 to me is that the Patriots and the Browns were used as leverage. The Patriots and the Browns were leaked, that they had frameworks of deals in place with the San Francisco 49ers to see if there was anybody else that would throw their hat in the ring at the last second that, frankly, I thought all along that this was coming from Aiyuk's side in Aiyuk's camp because I don't think he wants to be a Patriot or a Brown.
No. Here's what's crazy. He said 2 months ago on Ryan Clark's podcast, if he didn't play for the Niners, he wanted to play for the Commanders or the Steelers, and that was it. I still don't know why the Commanders weren't all over this.
Yeah, but my guess is that that was what the leverage play was they were already engaged at some point with Pittsburgh, it sounds like, and then were re-engaged after this first report came out that the Patriots and the Browns had deals in place with San Francisco pending an extension for Brandon Aiyuk. And then what happens is that you leak out there through one of your guys, your local guys like a Reese or a Tom Curran or something like that there's interest in the Browns and the Patriots have frameworks of deals. And then all of a sudden, guess who comes back around 12 hours later? The freaking Pittsburgh Steelers, right? They come out of nowhere again, and they're like, oh, okay, we're going to jump back into this race. This is really where he wants to go. So here's the facts of the case. Fact number 1 is that the Patriots reportedly had a framework of a trade done with San Francisco. This was not about compensation with the 49ers.
Right.
They had the deal done. The other fact is, now this report, the exact number and figures aren't necessarily out there, but I trust Mike Reese, and he said that the Patriots were willing to make Brandon Aiyuk a top 5 paid receiver in the NFL
Yeah, and there were other reports that had them north of $28 million a year.
Yeah, Josina Anderson just said that she had heard 28.5. I've heard 30, somewhere in the 28 to $30 million range.
Which is legitimate. I mean, that would make him
a legitimate offer.
That's just shy of Justin Jefferson, which is about... I never expected them to break the Justin Jefferson contract.
Yeah, it's about what Tyreek Hill in his restructured contract just got with the Miami Dolphins.
Which is about right.
So competitive market value contract for Brandon Aiyuk. And guess what? Brandon Aiyuk does not want to come to New England. He doesn't want to be here. And Adam Schefter added to it and said, this morning, I think it was in a clip that I had seen, that the Patriots got that vibe in the negotiation, that they were going to Brandon Aiyuk's people, his agent, and there just wasn't a whole lot of back and forth. There wasn't a whole lot of traction to the contract talks, almost on purpose, to the point that they kind of felt like he doesn't really want to be here. So we're negotiating against a brick wall, right? This is a one-sided negotiation because the other side doesn't really want to play ball. So this is where the Patriots are at. The Patriots are in a position now where they need, by on-the-field results, they need to make themselves an attraction again.
Yep.
They need to make themselves appealing again, because Aiyuk had leverage. He does not need to sign an extension. He essentially has a no-trade clause.
Right.
Because no team is giving up the package the 49ers are asking for without an extension in place with the player.
And I think that's why the Patriots pulled out. That's just kind of what it sounded like, is Brandon Aiyuk, would have... I mean, like you said, he had no trade clause. He would have come here, but you're not going to trade for him without the guarantee of the extension. And if his team comes to you and says, yeah, okay, make the trade, and then we'll see from there, you can't make that trade without a guaranteed extension.
No, this was all these trade terms that were agreed to or contingent on Brandon Aiyuk signing an extension. No extension, no trade.
Yep.
It's that simple. So I don't want to hear it about money. I don't want to hear it about compensation. This was a decision made by the player that he does not want to be a Patriot. And when I say I don't want to hear about it, the money or the compensation, that's not letting the team off the hook. They are not attracting people.
Right.
Brandon Aiyuk's caliber and Calvin Ridley's caliber, even though they're, I think, in different tiers, but similar situations. They're not attracting players, name brand players of that caliber, because of the situation that they're in as a team. And I know a lot of Patriots fans in my mentions, and I'm sure in yours too, well, why the Pittsburgh Steelers? I couldn't tell you. It's
Tomlin.
Tomlin, the fact that they won 10 games last year and were in the playoffs, the fact that they never have a losing season and they're always sort of in the mix in the AFC, even if they're not a true Super Bowl contender. Yeah. But I'm not Brandon Aiyuk. I can't read his mind. But the point is that he is telling you that Pittsburgh is a more desirable destination. Calvin Ridley told you Tennessee is a more desirable destination. Until that changes, you are going to be leverage. And that stinks. That really stinks.
And despite what the crybabies on Twitter will tell you, that can change.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of things have to happen for that to change, but that can change. Look, they're a 4-win team with an unproven defensive head coach and uncertainty at quarterback. Two of those things can change. Sherrod Mayo's always going to be a defensive head coach, but if you win some games, Drake May shows you something, and maybe like Alex Van Pelt, that offensive system picks up some steam.
Yeah.
You're going to get the attention of wide receivers. This comes down to what everything comes down to for the Patriots right now. Can Drake May be the guy, yes or no? And Drake May doesn't even have to be great. I go back to, and Evan, you know how much it kills me to do this, Buffalo. Josh Allen was not established when they made that trade. He started showing some flashes
he was
late
good
in that 2019 season.
He was good in year 2.
In the second half, he had good moments.
Yeah, but he was
the arrow was, he threw 20 touchdowns.
Okay, but the arrow was pointed upward.
But it was flashes. It wasn't anything definitive.
Yeah. There's no way that he wasn't what he is now.
But this is my point. All you need is Drake May to flash.
Yeah.
All you need is Drake May to just flash. He doesn't have to win Rookie of the Year. And you build some traction. And now there's interest. But again, it comes down to what everything comes down to for the Patriots. Is Drake May the guy or not? If he is, wide receivers will want to play with him. If he's not the guy, they have bigger problems than simply needing to get another number one wide receiver, because you got to reset this whole thing again if he's not the guy.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to.
It's such a tough spot to be in, because you need to build equity around the league and show these star players that you're building something promising here, but you have to do it essentially just through the draft and through within, because you're not attracting the players yet, right? It's like a chicken or the egg type of thing, where you don't have the equity built to sign a big name free agent like Calvin Ridley or make a big splash trade like Brandon Aiyuk, but you don't have the talent to be a playoff team to show that spark, but you also don't have the equity to make the trades that give you the talent, right? So it's a tough spot to be in.
So that comes down to player development.
Yeah.
The guys that you drafted, the guys that you have here, can you develop them and maximize them?
Yep. The last point I want to make on this, and then I'm sure we'll talk about this throughout the show.
Yeah.
The other point I wanted to make on this was we've talked a lot about on the show about when is the right time to make this trade.
Yep.
And this would be in our timelines that we've thrown out there, the Bills and Diggs, and Allen, Hurts and A.J. Brown, Tua and Tyreek, like whatever combination you want to look at, is probably a year or two earlier than those teams.
It's a little
do
early.
it.
It's acceptable, but it's definitely like the earliest it would be acceptable.
Right. And for the most part, we've discussed that as, well, you got to see what the quarterback is. And you want to see
what the quarterback is, what Polk is, what Baker is, where your draft picks end up.
Yeah, like you want to see how it kind of festers here, like how it kind of builds here. The other element of it that maybe deserves talking about in this situation is that you also make yourself more desirable, right? Like if the quarterback starts to pan out and the situation starts to look better. So maybe the reason why these trades don't go down in the off season before the rookie season of the quarterback that you just drafted third overall is because to Brandon Aiyuk, as much as I might disagree with it based off of watching Russell Wilson and Justin Fields play last year, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are names that Brandon Aiyuk recognizes.
Right.
Those are names of guys that have played in the league. Obviously, in Justin Fields' case, a really decorated college player that those guys all know about. You know, similarly with Cleveland, Deshaun Watson's not the same Deshaun Watson that he was in Houston or at Clemson or whatever, but Deshaun Watson is a name brand quarterback in this league. The Patriots need to get to a point where their operation is viewed in those similar categories, and that might also be why you can't move up the timeline on this type of trade. You might need a year or two to make this happen first. Like if you're lucky, you're a team like the Houston Texans that do it in a year, and then Stephon Diggs comes in year two. But it might be 2 years from now before they truly are an attraction to the point where they can land a guy like Aiyuk.
I know people don't want to hear this, but it's about patience. And I've seen people say, well, it's been 5 years they've been trying to do this. Not really. It's been 6 months.
Yeah.
The last guy tried, Bill tried, and he missed. And I think this is a different approach. I can't imagine Bill ever offering a receiver $30 million a year. So they missed on their first one. You know, I see people throwing out terms interest kings and things like that. We're not remotely there yet. We're not remotely there. And what this reminds me of a little bit, and I texted you about this last night. I think I texted you about this last night. Like, I had, for whatever reason, a bunch of Celtics fans going off on the Patriots for this and calling them, like, interest kings. And they're always talking about making a deal, but they never make a deal. How many years did the Celtics sit there and just hype up the Nets picks?
Yeah.
And it was Jimmy Butler, and it was Anthony Davis, and it was DeMarcus Cousins, right? Kawhi Leonard. And they never did anything. And people got on them for not making the move. And look what happened. And I'm not saying it's going to be exactly the same. I don't think like will the Patriots Jays, Jalen Polk and Javon Baker be as good as the Celtics Jays? I don't know. But the point is, just because they haven't made the move doesn't mean they'll never make the move. Yeah. And look, the Celtics, once they kind of got there, they started getting more aggressive. Like, oh, they've never signed a big name wide receiver. You're right, they haven't. Well, it's because they haven't until they've done it. Well, they'll never trade for a big name wide receiver. Well,
this is usually me finger wagging.
They haven't until they do. No, but like I hate it's this is a general pet peeve I have of the way people talk about sports. That because something's happened, it will never happen. The Cubs won the World Series. Okay, Leo DiCaprio. It's not sports. But Leo DiCaprio won an Oscar. The college football EA video game came back. Like things change. That's life. We live in an ever-changing world. Embrace it. The Bills never made a splash move for a wide receiver until they traded for Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
It is fair to point out that they have, to this point, struggled to make this move that most teams can make. That is a very beneficial move. That is a fair criticism, absolutely. To use this, and this is where I forget exactly what I said at the top of the show about, I think people are putting the cart before the horse here and maybe getting too carried away. It is fair to say that they haven't been able to land the plane.
Yeah.
It is fair to say they've not been able to get the fish in the boat, and these kind of moves happen all the time in the NFL, and they've come up short now. This front office has come up short once. If you want to say the organization has come up short 3 times in the last 2 years between DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, now Brandon Aiyuk, that is a fair criticism. To say it will never happen because Brandon Aiyuk in this one instance chose not to come to New England, you're just looking for something to whine about at that point. That's the reality of it, because all it takes is Drake May showing a little flash and the conversation completely changes. Things change fast in the NFL. Don't be surprised if it happens again.
And the effort's there.
Right. And we know now $30 million on the table, willing to part with the top 50 draft pick, all of that. We know the mentality is there.
Yeah, I want to talk about the mentality really quickly, but before we do, hey, Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots, Toyota. Let's go places, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. Last night I kind of needed a beer after that Schefter tweet. Mentality. I want to talk about that real quickly.
Yeah.
As we put a bow on this, and then we'll talk camp and tomorrow night and all that kind of stuff. The interesting thing I find about the mentality is that Elliot Wolf, his 2 mentors, Bill and his father, and neither one of them were known for being this aggressive in terms of veteran additions, and especially being this aggressive at the wide receiver position. The Packers drafted receivers all the time, but the Packers don't take part in free agency, notoriously.
And they don't make trades.
They don't bring in external additions often. Maybe once in a blue moon, they might bring in a Reggie White, like I think was his dad's big move, right? He traded for Favre, but it's a different quarterback's different. But every once in a while, those things would happen when it would put them over the top. You know, the Patriots signing Darrelle Revis, the Patriots signing Stephon Gilmore, like those moves to help them put them over the top as a roster to a Super Bowl contender. But they are not aggressive spenders in this sense. They'll resign guys that deserve extensions, but they're not aggressive spenders. I find it interesting that in his first offseason at the helm of a football operation, a job that he's been building towards for his entire life, that he is bucking all the trends of the Packer way and the Patriot way. And I'm not saying I don't like it or I'm against it or anything like that, but he's his own guy. Like, this is not Ron Wolf.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
it's not.
It's a different league than Ron Wolf was in. It's really a different league that prime Bill Belichick was in, right? It's a wide receiver dictated league, or not dictated, but
pass game dictated.
Right.
Yeah.
We know Matt Groh was big on this, and they never got the deal done, but he had talked about in the past recognizing the importance of getting these playmakers on your offense. So I wonder if it's just 2 younger guys that grew up in a different NFL, taking what they've known in the past, and I guess it could just be Wolf, but like a guy that you know, he learned what he learned growing up, but also recognizing that, like I said before, the NFL changes. The NFL changes a lot. The game is not what it was 10 years ago. It's really kind of moved on from what it was even 5 years ago. And understanding that those old core philosophies may work, but at the end of the day, you do need to make adjustments to keep up with the times.
Yeah, there was a chance, and my guess is that it's a combination of things. I agree with you wholeheartedly that that is probably number one, that it's a different league, it's a different time, all those kinds of things. I also do think that there is, pressure is probably the wrong word, but there is urgency on the part of ownership to put this team back on the map in a good way, in a positive way. And that's not going to happen. The draft and develop approach, even though that's the right way for sustainability, that's not going to make it happen in a short period of time. That's going to be, we're going to be talking about, 2, 3, 4 years from now, them being a contender. Whereas I feel like the Crafts would, and this is just my 2 cents, it's not informed or anything, but I just feel like their timeline is, they would like it to be quicker than that. Everybody would like it to be quicker than that. So the way to do that is obviously to add proven commodity players to the roster, along with drafting and developing and doing it the quote-unquote right way, as we often hear. But the Packers were a draft and develop team. They were a build-from-within type of team. They weren't a free agency team. They weren't a splash trade team. And neither really was Bill. And so it's just interesting that That's not at all what Elliot Wolf's approach has been. Hasn't landed the plane, but that's not at all what his approach has been. So that's Brandon Aiyuk. That kind of sets the tone for the day on that. We'll obviously take calls, questions, all that about it moving forward if he's won as well. So I'm sure we'll circle back to Brandon Aiyuk. But I also think that, the more important stuff now that this is over, it turns the page to training camp and what we've seen over the last week since the last time we did the show. And then, of course, tomorrow night, the first dress rehearsal against the Carolina Panthers right here at Gillette Stadium with the Patriots and the Panthers, which Gerard Mayo said everybody's going to play. That's healthy. And Jacoby Brissett's probably going to play a little bit. It sounds like he's going to start the game, and Drake May is going to play. I expect Drake May to play a lot. So for a lot of you guys that haven't been able to get out to camp, this will be the first opportunity for the people to see Drake May in a Patriot uniform and watch him play, which will be interesting. I want to reset our quarterback thoughts and where we stand right now with that. And I guess there's really not much to say about Brissett. I wouldn't say. We kind of know what he is, and he's been as advertised in these camp practices, whether it's just being a functional, serviceable veteran stopgap and just a great dude, honestly. Like, I know nobody really cares about that, but he
matters.
He matters, and I said he didn't, and I apologize to him for that. I shouldn't have said that. I wasn't familiar with your game, as they like to say.
But last week,
so I'm sorry.
Last week you got mad at Felger for doing the same thing.
No, I got mad at Felger because Felger told me that Jacoby Brissett was trash for weeks on end. I said on one of our live PU shows during training camp that I didn't care about Jacoby Brissett in the prism of training camp. To me was all about evaluating Drake May, and I could really care less.
Okay.
Right. I think that Jacoby Brissett can play a little bit. I've always said that about his Browns season in 2022, and if you look at the numbers and you look at the tape from that season, it's better than people think it is. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying you're going to win a Super Bowl. I'm not saying that he's going to win 10, 11 games for you this year, but it's certainly better than the quarterback play they've gotten here over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how I feel about Jacoby Brissett. With Drake May, though, and I know you're going to tell me that, learn your lesson, slow down, yada, yada, yada. Let's see what it looks like tomorrow night. It's a big test for him.
Yep.
In a game setting. If it comes apart tomorrow night, then I'll change my tune. Subject to change. But we're trending towards that point of the summer where I would just like to see him with starters against starters. And it's almost just as important to see him against starters as it is with.
Yeah.
We're at the point now where it looks like he's starting to stack days where the results aren't always perfect. And, when people tweet out the training camp stats, they're, it's sometimes uneven, 5 of 11, 6 for 12, whatever the number is. But the eye test, he looks like he's seeing it a little bit better. The ball's coming out a little bit quicker. He's a little bit more confident. You can actually see him kind of going through reads and recognizing things pre-snap a little bit faster. I've liked what I've seen out of him from, let's call it, the last 3 or 4 practices in that regard. And that was really what we were talking about in terms of the development, was between the years, processing, decision-making, anticipation, timing, rhythm, all that kind of stuff. I feel like he's coming along in those regards. And at some point, he has had a mix of rosterable receivers that he's throwing to. Baker is out there with him. Polk is out there with him. On occasion, Pop is out there with him. So it's not like he's always throwing to back end of the roster guys, but he doesn't usually have Hunter Henry, because Hunter Henry gets his work in with the ones and then sits out. And he doesn't have Ramondre in the backfield. Most importantly, he doesn't have the starting offensive line,
which is really the backup offensive line.
Yeah.
He's been working with the backup offensive line, which is really the third offensive line.
Right. And we already know on this team, it's a great point. We already know on this team that offensive line depth is an issue.
Right.
So think about, not only does he not have the quote-unquote starting offensive line, he's now working with the backup.
He's working with guys
line
that probably won't be on the team.
Yeah. In a lot of cases. Like Layden Robinson will be here as a draft pick. And, there have been times recently where, like, Leverett has subbed in because the snaps have just been disastrous and they've needed that. We talk a lot about yesterday the reports out of practice. A lot of them were good start, looked really good. Had that one drive where he was getting the ball out quick and hitting Jalen Reagor underneath and taking profits and marching the offense a little bit. Then he had a fantastic 7-on-7 run, which I don't really care about at this point, but it existed. And then we got into the hurry up or the 1 minute or whatever you want to call it, and the wheels came off, right? He came off the rails. But when you really break down what happened in that hurry up sequence, I know people, he's making excuses again, whatever. The hurry up offense, there's 2 drops in there. There's a bad snap that got the center replaced.
That also probably was a delay of game.
Which tells you that it was the center because they yanked him right away. And the pick that he threw was like a bang-bang play where it went through Javon Baker's hands and then tipped up in the air. And it was just one of those plays. It wasn't like I thought he made a terrible read and threw the ball right to a defender, right? There's so much context is my point in some of these reps that if he's with the starters, if he's with the ones who have looked like they've clicked a little bit and are coming into a rhythm at times in practice, maybe all of these little blips along the way don't look as bad if the ball's not going right through people's hands and things like that, right?
Right.
So I'm not telling you that I'm ready to anoint him as the starter yet.
You are, though.
I've learned I'm getting there. But he's at the point now where I feel like if he has a good performance tomorrow night in the preseason game, he's earned the right to at least see what it looks like with him with the starters. That doesn't mean you have to bench Jacoby. Doesn't mean you have to change course, right? It just for right now, it's probably worth a look. That's kind of where I'm at with Drake May. I'm just encouraged by the timing and the rhythm and the processing seem to be faster, be quicker, be more in sync of what you would want out of an NFL quarterback than what they were, let's say, this time a week and a half ago. Yeah,
and you used the word earned in there. I think that's the big. I think that's the big one. I think that's the important term because you do have to earn starts. You do have to earn reps with the starters, and that's not just from the coaching staff; it's from your teammates. Guys want to play with the quarterback that's going to allow them to maximize what they can do, and we talked a lot about this with Mac and Bailey Zappi the last couple of years about where the locker room is at. I would expect he'll see some time with the ones, whatever the ones looks like in this game, again, with all the offensive linemen out. And those are big reps for him. Like you said, this is where if he's going to make that push, that's where it starts. You want to get reps with the starters in the joint practice, which is very important. Prove tomorrow night you're up for it.
Yeah.
And then from there, all right, you have a good joint practice. And you go in the second preseason game and you start closing that gap. So this is his chance to start earning reps with the ones, but he does have to earn them. You can't let your timeline dictate his development. His development has to dictate your timeline. If he comes out with the starters and struggles, let's not force it and say, well, it was his first time with the starters. No. He's got to look the part in order to earn more reps, but this is a chance for him to earn more reps. And if he does play well Thursday night, then it's all right. How's he look in the joint practice? How's he look in the preseason game against the Eagles? And then you get to start having that conversation of, well, all right, when do we see this in a real game?
Yeah,
there's a lot of ifs in there, but yeah.
No, I hear what you're saying, and I have a question for you in a second. But the other thing I just wanted to say was I've really liked how they've coached him so far in these practices. The other day, and I can't tell you if this has been true for every single practice because I didn't do this, but during games when we're sitting in the press box, I live chart coverages for usually the Patriots defense. I don't usually chart it the other way, but a live chart, cover 1, cover 2, blitz, whatever.
Right.
So I did that for a practice to see what exactly the coaches are throwing at Drake May in these practices. Because when I was watching it, well, first of all, what really sparked it was that when he spoke to us last, he said that they had a shot play drawn up that they called for him in the huddle, and then the defense dropped out into cover 2, and he was going to be throwing right into the defense, so he had to check the ball down. And you could feel a sense of maybe a little bit frustration with the fact that he hadn't been able to truly air it out, is the terms that he used yet in practice. So I said, all right, let's see what they're doing. For the practice that I charted in, I believe it was Monday's practice, I saw a lot of cover 2 or 2 high safety. I saw a lot of blitz. And so what they're doing with those two things, when they blitz him, they were making him hot, which means that he needs to come with the ball out, right? So you're not going to sit there, when there's an unblocked blitzer coming off the edge and they're like running nickel pressure or something like that. You're not going to just like sit there for 3 seconds and hold the ball and wait for the routes down the field to develop and chuck it down the field. So he, when the blitz hit came, ball's out, right? He's got to be out. So he's throwing the ball to his hot at that point. When they play too high, just like he told us in the presser, okay, well, I'm not going to throw a deep ball into too high because I'm throwing the ball into into double coverage. Like, why would I do that, right? So instead, what is he doing? He's checking the ball down. The things that we talk about with him at North Carolina that were issues that a lot of people put up to his footwork and things like that. But a lot of it was, okay, we know that he can make the big time throws. We know he can make the highlights. We know he's a playmaker. He can run around. He can make plays off platform. He can do all that kind of stuff. What we don't know is if he can hit the layups. Can he just sit in the pocket within structure and just hit throws on time and in rhythm consistently? At North Carolina, that was his issue. He could go out, like you put Drake May's best 10 college throws against any quarterback that was drafted in the last 3 or 4 years, and his throws are right up there with anybody's. It was the consistency of, can he hit an out when that's all that's available to him? Can he check a ball down against the too high pressure? Can he beat a blitz? Can he do all these little quarterback intricacies and nuances? So in practice, what they've said to him is, you're not going to be Superman out here. Like, we're not going to just let you run around and throw 60-yard bombs all day because we know you can do that. That's all over your college tape. We're going to make you play quarterback. We're going to send stuff at you, and you're going to have to read this out, and you're going to have to make the best decision with the football, and you're going to have to take profits. You're not going to get greedy and throw the ball into coverage and throw picks left and right. This took a lot of time for Josh Allen to learn, to be able to play like this. And I know you're going to tell me he's still
learning.
Right.
He's still learning.
But this has taken a lot of time for him. And if you look at Mahomes also, Mahomes' career ADOT, and a lot of this is tied to Tyreek Hill, and I get that. But Mahomes' career ADOT goes like this, right? Yeah. Where beginning of his career, he's throwing bombs to Tyreek Hill, and now he's like a dink and dunk quarterback all of a sudden, right? Because teams are just playing too high safety. They're playing they're playing quarters, they're playing cover 2, and they are saying to Mahomes, we're not going to let you beat us like that. You're going to have to march. And right now the Patriots are forcing Drake May to learn how to march. And I love it. I think that's exactly how you should coach him, because this is his weakness. Allowing him to just play to his strengths and his instincts in practice doesn't do anybody any good. Right. It's not going to make him any better. This type of stuff is going to make him better. So when you put all this together and you look at some of the ups and downs, I think this explains a lot of the downs, because they're asking him to play to his weaknesses and do things that he needs to work on in practice, which is what practice is for. So sometimes we go out to practice and we watch and we chart all the throws and we grade the results of the plays, and it's not pretty for him at times. But there's a lot of things that go into that, and I'd much rather this than watching him go out there and play street ball and just let him do it that way, because that's not teaching good habits. That's not NFL quarterback play. That's playground stuff. Right. So we're in a situation now where they're really trying to hone in on, can you play within the scheme and within the structure of the offense? And then once we can get to that point, okay, we'll start letting you do the other things. And then we add them together, and now all of a sudden we got a franchise quarterback, right? That's the goal. So I'm excited about what they're doing with him from a coaching perspective. Now we hope to see the results. But he's starting to take to the coaching a little bit, I think, too, and improve on those areas. And that's all you can ask for. So my question to you, because you called me on another show that we did together on the Patriots Beat crossover. You called me the number one fan of the Drake May fan club, I think is
the biggest Drake May fan. Yeah.
Yeah. Something along those lines.
Biggest Drake May supporter, something like that.
So everybody knows I'm a Drake May guy. Was before, will be after. The question I have for you is am I Do I have rose-colored glasses on with this, or are you seeing similar things with his progress in practice?
So, I mean, I think you're mostly accurate. I think I wouldn't say rose-colored glasses. I think you're projecting some ifs going in the right direction, which they very well could, but they haven't yet. But no, I like that they're making him play left-handed. I do think that they are kind of forcing him to do the things he's not comfortable to do. That is how you develop a quarterback. I would hope at some point they maybe, or not hope, I guess you want to balance that with making sure he doesn't lose his confidence. And he doesn't look like he's done that yet. But, you don't want to entirely break the kid either, right? I think the big thing is everything's happening quicker for him than it happened at UNC. And I think that, to me, has been the big issue, is just, and some of that is he's reading things he hasn't read before, and they're not favorable to what he wants to see, right? The read and react time in the NFL is much shorter than the read and react time in the ACC, and that's where he was having some issues. And then you put on top of that, nobody's blocking for him. Like, he couldn't get any protection. And the practice yesterday, the word I kept going back to was comfortable.
Yeah.
I thought he looked comfortable. It also happened to be the practice that he got the best pass blocking, because David Andrews was back, so Nick Leverett goes back with that group. I thought Caden Wallace had a really good day. Like, he just had more time. And that, to me, was the most encouraging thing. That I don't want to say, like, there was nothing to worry about from last week, because he didn't look great.
Yeah.
But the pass pro was a big part of it. And I think it was encouraging to see, okay, he had some time. And when he had time, he didn't look as flustered.
Right.
Like, he actually used the time he had to deliver the ball, and some of the live game rep stuff. I put more stock into that 2-minute drill or 1-minute drill going more awry than maybe you did, because the Baker one, I don't like to read. I don't. That's a tight window. You're showing a ton of trust. And
those are definitely ones that you'll learn now at this level, that window doesn't exist.
So I was going to say,
yeah,
if he learns from that and doesn't throw that again, then fine. He threw the pick. He learned from it. It happens. Like, anytime there's a, I know you said they, moved on from Mafi, but anytime you don't get the ball snapped, that's partially on the quarterback. That's just the reality of the position, right? So I still am concerned about, in the livest game situations, the 1-minute, the 2-minute drills are his worst periods of practice.
Yep.
And that is, to me, part of the reason why Thursday's so big, because it is live game action. Show up. Yeah. Show up, show it in a live game. But I was encouraged by, all right, now that he has time to throw, we're seeing a little more of that true quarterbacking than maybe we were seeing earlier in practice.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair about the hurry up. You have to put some on the quarterback. The fact that it's not even just that he's not moving the ball. He's not completing a pass.
No, he's gone.
It's like 0 for 8 in the last two practices. If I remember correctly,
but it's not just 0 for 8. He hasn't finished with the score yet on a 1 or 2 minute. But I think you said he's run 8 of them. I don't have the number in my head.
Yeah.
How many first downs does he have?
He
might not have one.
Over the last 2 practices, I'm in that 1 minute
last
hurry
2
up,
practices,
I think he's literally 0 for 8 in terms of pass attempts. I don't think he's completed
0 for 8 pass attempts.
I don't think he's completed a single pass attempt.
I think going back, he might have, because they've done a few of these. They've probably about 8 of them. Like, that number sounded right. I remember he had one where he picked up a first down, but it was 3rd and long, and they threw it in the flat to Terrell Jennings, and Jennings made a guy miss and picked up the first down. It's not even like, he's moving the ball, but he's not scoring touchdowns, or, they're making competitive plays. He's not moving the ball in those situations. That is my real concern right now, but that's also why Thursday night's so big, because if he does it Thursday night, all right, well, when the lights got brighter, he did it, so whatever.
Yeah, we'll get to more individual players in a second, but the one thing that you mentioned, and Paul has mentioned this on Unfiltered as well, and I guess I know it sounds almost stupid, but like, I don't necessarily pay as much attention to it, because what I'm more looking for is like perfect plays, right? Like, was that clean? Did that hit executed properly? All that kind of stuff.
Intent rather than result.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot, even not just for Drake May, for Jacoby Brissett too, of like the play clock like getting to 0, the snap not getting off, or like just like stuff in between plays.
Operational.
Yeah, where it's like, are they getting in and out of the huddle fast enough? Are they doing, and that kind of stuff tends to, and I know this kind of goes up your alley, so that's why I'm bringing it up. That kind of stuff with these types of West Coast and like these types of offensive coaches, I know this is gonna sound stupid, but they like almost don't care in a practice, and they expect that this is the NFL.
Yeah.
When we get into games, like you're gonna know how, like this is the NFL, right? I don't have to baby you through these. Whereas with Bill, that was part of practice, right? Was this is a game, treat it like a game. If we don't get the playoff, I'm throwing the fake flag and we're going 5 yards back for delay of game. In these practices, they almost ignore the play clock. They don't even look at it.
So that's why I said on the Drake May 1 minute yesterday, the play clock was like well out before the bad snap from Mafi, and they never really acknowledged it.
They don't care. And I don't know if that's for the better or for the worse. Like, we'll find out. But my guess is if you went to some of these other camps that have similar philosophies and coaching trees and things like that, I don't know if they would care either.
I mean, it's a West Coast tree thing. Game management's not important. Like,
that's why I brought it up.
Now, I'd say this.
I knew you were going to get there.
Am I wrong?
No, that's why I brought it up.
And you see now why I heard. It's easy to say it's overblown when it's not the team you're watching day in and day out.
No, because you get into the games, and we see this on Sundays with some of these teams, and this is where it manifests itself.
Mike McDaniel in a playoff game can't get a play call in.
Correct.
So, like, it does matter. Brissett's been better about it. The first few days of practice, the top offense had some issues. They've been They had one drop snap yesterday. It was in the rain.
Yeah.
And it's David Andrews. I'm not going to fret about that. With Drake May's group, there's still some operational stuff. I would hope if and when May becomes the starter, leading up to that, even if it's like a week or two before, if you know you're kind of on the precipice of making that change, you drill that. Will they? I don't know. But no, you're right about that.
Yeah, it's funny because it manifests itself on Sundays with these types of coaches.
Practice how you play.
And I know people on your side of the street will say, "Oh, they're nose deep in the freaking play sheet, and they don't aren't watching the game or feeling the game or whatever." Whereas Bill was always like stoic on the sideline, just kind of CEOing everything.
Well, it is surprising. Like, Mayo's not from that background. It is a little surprising that Mayo, and maybe if it does become an issue, Mayo goes to Van Pelt and says, "You need to work on this. I know you have your practice script, but that'd be an interesting test for Mayo as a first-time head coach. Like, if it does become a problem, does he go to Van Pelt, who's just has more tenure as a coach, and say, I'm the head coach of the team. This is unacceptable. This is happening. You need to dedicate practice time to fixing it." I would hope he would do that.
Yeah, I'm still interested in that aspect of Gerard Mayo, and also just in the aspect of he said that he wants to be a floater.
Yeah.
In terms of being a coach like Bill was, where, he's popping around in different position groups and offense, defense, special teams, whatever. I wonder how. I wonder if he has the acumen for it. I'm not trying to get at him for football IQ or anything like that. He obviously knows football. I'm just saying there's a big difference when you're Bill Belichick and you're doing that.
Yeah.
And you have, 50 some odd years of information, stowed away in the brain, and you've coached multiple sides of the ball, special teams, defense, whatever. That he can flow because he's Bill Belichick, right? Like he can, and he can tell you all 22 guys what they did wrong on a play instantly. It's interesting approach for a first-time head coach that's as young as Gerard, because most of the guys in his school or that are in his situation, his shoes, they would just coach their side of the ball.
Right.
He's a defensive guy, so he would just coach the defense, and Alex Van Pelt's an experienced offensive coordinator that he's brought in, and so he would just let Alex Van Pelt coach the offense. I still don't know if we're fully in Bill mode yet. Maybe he's still doing more of the defense than anything, but I'll be interested to see once we get into the season how hands-on he is with the other phases, because just give you an example, D'Amico Ryans in Houston. D'Amico Ryans is calling the defense in Houston.
Right.
He's literally the play caller on game day on the defensive side of the ball, and he doesn't necessarily touch the offense as much. So we'll see what happens. It's officially back to football season, which means it's back to school season, Alex, and you can find everything you need to design your dream dorm at Bob's Discount Furniture. Set up stylish study spots with plenty of small space-friendly seating, A+ bedroom sets, and of course, smart storage made to maximize your college HQ. So stop in and make the grade with Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. Let's take some calls and emails, and then we'll get to it. We're going to do 3 up, 3 down again from the last week or so of camp. But Patty is in Agawam. What's up, Patty?
Hold on. Everything cool. What's up, guys?
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Hold on, let me take you. So, just regarding Drake May tomorrow night, I'm not going to be able to see the game because I got to drive to Port Chester, New York from Agawam for 5 a.m. But I'm recording it. But do you think their philosophy is just going to be like, just don't hesitate if you see something or if you're anticipating something, just let her rip. Don't overthink it. Go have some fun, but just do what they're doing. Try and play in structure, and like I said, don't hesitate. If you see something or anticipate something, make it happen. I'll take it off here, guys. Thanks. And always, you guys are the best.
Thanks, Patty. Appreciate it. Yeah, I hope, and I feel like based off of talking to the quarterbacks, that's sort of the mindset even in practice.
Yeah.
I think it was Joe Milton actually who said the other day, if you're thinking about making a mistake, you're going to make a mistake. It's when you just play loose and play free that you don't make mistakes. So I would expect that that's exactly where they're going to have Drake May going into this game is don't think about it. Just let it rip. If you see it, let it rip. It doesn't need to be any deeper than that. I expect him to take his chances, not risk. Right. You know what I mean?
I would hope that they just tell him to take the same approach he would for a game, like a regular season game. Practice how you play. He should have the same approach in practice that he does in preseason games that he does in regular season games.
Yeah.
This just if you start overthinking it, then bad things happen.
Yeah, I agree. All right.
I'll say along these lines around that, how much do you think he's going to play?
Yeah, it's a good place to put that in. I would expect it depends on how Gerard said Jacoby Brissett's going to start, so I'm just going to take him at his word.
Yeah.
If Jacoby Brissett starts, then obviously a lot depends on how that first drive, if they go 3 and out and they want him to get some work in, then that's not going to do it, right? You're going to have to send him back out there, and then you're starting to get into like real game time and all that kind of stuff. My guess is that they'll have a certain set number of drives that they would like Drake May to play. Whether that spans into the second half or not will be determined on how long the drives are and all that kind of stuff. I expect him to play the equivalent of probably at least a quarter and a half, if not a whole half of football. Especially if they're planning on him not playing early in the year, which is, I still think, the plan for them, then this is his opportunity to get game reps. So if they're not going to play him until Halloween or Thanksgiving or something like that in the regular season, now's the time. Like, he's not going to get any better reps than this. So I expect him to play a good chunk of this game. I'd say conservatively a quarter and a half equivalent, but maybe even 2 full quarters.
So I think 2, maximum 3 drives for Brissett. So that puts May in late in the first quarter or start of second quarter.
Yeah.
I think he plays the whole second quarter. Some of this may be decided on the fly. There is value, and Bill used to talk about this, in having the young quarterback, go into halftime, meet with the coaches, go over adjustments, go out for the first drive of the third quarter, maybe the second drive, execute those adjustments. That's a valuable exercise. But if they can't protect him, maybe he gets the hook after the second quarter. And I do think that's going to be a factor because it could get ugly up front. Like, they're going to have – are any of the starters going to play in this game? I know Mayo said everybody healthy enough to practice will play, but City Soma's practiced yesterday. Chooks Okorafor's missed the last, 4 practices?
Yeah.
David Andrews I don't think is going to play, even though he practiced a little bit yesterday. We don't even know really who the starting left tackle is. You don't have a true starter there. That leaves Mike Onwenu, who's your best lineman. Does he play, and how much does he play?
I don't expect. My guess is that some of those guys, those veteran, David Andrews, Hunter Henry, Mike Onwenu, I don't expect to see those guys.
So do they are they going to be able to protect Drake May? Because if they can't, and he's getting the crap beat out of him, you can't leave him in the game.
Right.
You can't. So I think that's going to dictate part of it. But I think he definitely gets the whole second quarter. It's just, do they let him make the turn going into the second half?
Yeah, it's a good point.
I bet if they win the coin toss, they're going to kick for that exact reason, so they can just put him in the game, get him out at halftime.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. All right. I like it. All right, Dylan is in Tennessee. What's up, Dylan? Dylan.
Dylan, what's up?
Dylan, going
once. Going twice.
All right, give us a call back, Dylan, and we'll get you on the air. A couple emails here that we have. Most of these are just, post-mortem Brandon Aiyuk stuff.
Yep.
But, a lot of people asking about same things that we're kind of saying in terms of they need to be more desirable destination, yada, yada, yada. One about CeeDee Lamb. We we touched on that a little bit. I kind of viewed, and maybe this is wrong, and maybe there's precedent that I'm not thinking about, but I sort of view the Jerry Jones Cowboys kind of like I view the Yankees, where like when you have a player of CeeDee Lamb's caliber, Micah Parsons' caliber, like Jerry Jones doesn't let those guys get out of the building.
So you say that, but
they haven't signed Dak.
They haven't signed Dak. They've been acting more like one of those big market teams that's not a big market team. Remember they promised big splashes at the start of the offseason and then proceeded to sign nobody. And it's not just about not wanting to bring him back. They haven't signed Dak, and that's starting to get contentious. I think they also have to pay, what is Micah Parsons?
Yeah.
Is almost up too, right?
If he isn't,
so
his extension window.
So next year he'll be going.
So he was a 2021 draft pick.
Yeah.
Which means that he's going into year 5.
Yeah.
Right? Or year 4.
So his fifth-year option will be next year.
Correct.
So he's a year away, but he's going to need a deal.
He's extension eligible.
Yeah. So here's the thing. He can say he's going to pay him eventually all he wants. And this is some of what I think happened with Aiyuk. There's other factors at play here, but
yeah.
How long is CeeDee Lamb going to sit there and hear that? How long is CeeDee Lamb going to sit there and say, yeah, okay, you're going to pay me. Sure, I'll wait. Or does he get fed up and say, you know what? I'm not listening to you anymore. You've negotiated with me in bad faith. Jerry Jones is the kind of guy that will open up the checkbook, yes. He's also the kind of guy that could aggravate a player to the point where he runs him out of town before he gets to opening the checkbook.
I guess that's fair. I just look at CeeDee Lamb. I'll just use a current Yankee comparison.
Yeah.
It would be like if the Yankees let Aaron Judge walk.
They almost did.
And they almost did, but they didn't, right? They almost did, but they didn't. And our whole lifetime, that's been the Yankees, right? Derek Jeter never left the Yankees. Mo Rivera never left and we never even talked about it as a possibility.
It doesn't happen until it does. I'll say it again.
I don't know. I just look at the Cow. I can't imagine that the Cowboys would.
I would also
would
Aaron
walk away
Judge.
from CeeDee Lamb.
Again, is CeeDee Lamb going to be patient? Is CeeDee Lamb going to be patient, or is he going to get to the point where he says, you know what, I can get $35 million a year from 31 other NFL teams. You don't want to pay me? Fine. We're done here. Move me.
So here's Connor.
How many players did the Niners let get away over the years? Like in their prime. I know Jerry Rice left late, but
not many. Connor has a proposal for CeeDee Lamb. You want to hear it?
Yeah.
It's an interesting one, actually.
All right.
First round pick swap.
Okay.
With Dallas. So, yeah, you could do that.
Yeah.
Yep. Second round pick. A future third round pick. So I'm assuming this is like the first round pick swap in 25. Second round pick in 25. Maybe your 2026 third round pick. And either Matthew Judon or Kendrick Bourne.
Well, I mean, I'd probably get it done. But isn't the price is going to be set by the Aiyuk move?
Well, he's a better player than Aiyuk.
Right, but it's going to be relatively set. Going from a second-round pick to a first-round. All right, and by the way, when I talk about CeeDee Lamb, and we'll get to some of the other guys, I don't mean doing that now. I'm talking about in the spring.
Yeah. We're definitely talking about it in the spring here.
Yeah. First-round pick swap's interesting. I'd probably rather give up the second outright than do the first-round pick swap.
But you are also giving up the second.
Yeah,
in this proposal.
I don't think he's going to cost that much more than Aiyuk. I don't think you need to give up that much. I think it might be he's going to cost more, but is it a second and next year's second and Aiyuk or something like that?
I'm interested to see where the market goes with these receiver trades, because on the one hand, they're extremely valuable commodities in the league now. We know that. They're getting paid like it. They produce like it. They are now. You could make a case, and I don't know if I would, but you could make a case they're the second most important position in football.
But there's...
Obviously, quarterback's number one.
Right. But there's so many of them.
So that's my point. There's so many of them, and now it's also at a point where good talent evaluating teams can draft them.
Right.
And so at what point... And maybe we'll see it with, Brandon Aiyuk, I think, is the reason why I wouldn't say it's comparable is because of the time of year. Because if the Cowboys trade CeeDee Lamb, they're going to trade him in March, which is when his stock is going to be the highest. So then
maybe it's the Diggs trade. Maybe it's a first-round pick outright for CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, I agree that this haul would easily get it done probably.
Yeah, it's too much. You don't need to give up that much.
I don't know if you need to give up that much.
I don't think you do either. And there's less of these. There's only so many teams that can give out these contracts.
Yeah.
And there's less and less of them, and there'll be more in March than there are right now. But
if you're just an example from this past draft, and I get that this draft was unique at receiver still, even.
Yeah.
This was a great top of the receiver class. My guess is, and I haven't obviously done deep dives into Burden and Tech McMillan and those guys, but I can't imagine that I'm going to have them higher than Neighbors, Adunze, and Marvin Harrison. I can't.
They're like a half step below.
Yeah.
Burden is. McMillan's such an unknown still. But
yeah, it's hard for me to fathom.
How far was your gap? Because I look at Zay Flowers and Xavier Worthy.
Yeah.
How far is the gap between them and Neighbors to you?
Big.
Well, he's like a better version, I think, of those players, like a slightly better version.
Yeah,
of those
Neighbors to me would have been.
Yeah, you had Neighbors up there with Harrison too. You had
it was
unique.
It was close.
Yeah,
it was closer than other people had. I don't even know if that's true. I feel like Neighbors, by the end, we were all pretty in lockstep that all three of those guys were elite blue chip prospects.
I think that was people just needing something to talk about more than anything else.
I don't think he was a better prospect than Marvin Harrison Jr., but if any Giants camp is any indication, my goodness. But he's would be the wide receiver one in pretty much any other class.
All right, but look, the point being it's supply and demand.
There's going to be receivers in every draft.
There is more.
Every draft is going to have them.
And there's going to be guys who want new contracts every year who the teams won't pay. There's more supply than there is demand for wide receivers. That doesn't it can change, but it doesn't look like it's changing anytime soon.
Yep. All right. Rodney is in Delaware. What's up, Rodney?
Hey guys.
Hey.
But I was trying to wonder, how do you guys feel about possibly trading for either Orlando Brown from the Bengals, since they just drafted Amarius Mims and they also have Trent Brown, or possibly a Trent Williams trade?
Yeah. Thanks for the call, Rodney. So I put this out on Twitter before the show, so I'm glad he brought up Trent Williams. The other conversation, or the other sort of rebuttal to the Brandon Aiyuk situation I keep hearing is that the left tackle is a bigger need than receiver. And I get it to an extent because they just drafted two receivers. Everybody feels pretty good about Baker and Polk. Yeah. Maybe those guys are enough, at least for now. Maybe they're enough. Maybe they are Nico Collins and Tank Dell, right? Maybe they're enough for now. Whereas left tackle, we both, I think, agree with this. Vidarian Lowe cannot be your starting left tackle in week one. They're in trouble.
It might be, but
they're in trouble. Yeah, if that's the case. So I get it. It's a bigger need, but you can't. It's not Madden. You can't just create a player out of thin air and make him available via trade.
Right.
If Trent Williams was available via trade, I think the Patriots would be calling the 49ers just like they did with Brandon Aiyuk. So
part of the reason the Niners are trading Brandon Aiyuk is because they want to get in a position to pay Trent Williams.
Yeah, he's in a tier of his own.
Yeah.
Right now at left tackle, he's the best left tackle in football, and I think he's in an S tier by himself.
Yeah.
Right now. So if he was available via trade, the aggressiveness that the Patriots showed for Brandon Aiyuk would be the same level of aggressiveness for Trent Williams. He's not available. I don't think. He's not available. Orlando Brown. Interesting name. If I'm the Bengals, though, Amarius Mims is extremely raw.
Yeah.
He barely played in college. He had 11 career starts, 12 career starts or something like that at Georgia. Got hurt last year. Very, very raw player. And we know all about Trent Brown and that experience.
He just passed his physical 2 days ago.
We know all about it, right? So the combination of those two factors, Orlando Brown's still the best tackle they have on that team until further notice, until Amarius Mims realizes his potential. If you're the Bengals, you're in a win-now mode with Joe Burrow. You don't know what T. Higgins' future is. This is probably your best year to push the chips all in the middle of the table. I would doubt that they would want to move on from a guy like Orlando Brown right now. He's their one known commodity.
Yeah.
You can't count on Trent Brown. We've been down that road here before. You can't count on him. So that's my 2 cents on that. Bigger picture, name the tackle. Like if you are sitting out there and you're saying tackle's a bigger need than wide receiver, why aren't they pursuing tackles instead of Brandon Aiyuk? Tell me the tackle. Like tell me the tackle that's readily available, that can be a day one starting left tackle for this team, and I will tell you either, yeah, you're right, that they should make that move, but I'm telling you there's one name. There's one name that I would monitor, and that's Garrett Bowles in Denver. And even him is the same conversation.
Yeah, but they think Bo Nix is going to work, so they're not going to trade him.
Oh, God. They do not. But
they have to think Bo Nix is going to work. They took him in the first round.
That's fair. It's like the same conversation.
Objectively, if you just drafted a first-round quarterback, even though we both think he was far from a first-round quarterback, if you just drafted a first-round quarterback and they have no depth at tackle, they have nobody. William Sherman is on their depth chart. Remember him?
Oh, yeah.
He's like
Mr. President.
Not low on their depth chart. Do you actually remember who that is?
Yeah, the Patriots drafted him, didn't they?
He's not low on their depth chart. They're not trading Garrett Bowles. No, tackle is. We just talked about how there's a surplus of wide receivers.
There's the opposite.
Tackle is the opposite. If you get a good tackle, there are not. Forget 64 tackles good enough because every team needs 2. I don't know if there's 32 starting caliber tackles in the NFL right now.
It's scarce.
That one you have to do in the draft. Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks. That one's going to have to be in the draft.
Yep. I think we're in agreement on that. All right. But, again, if you have a name, like I threw out Garrett Bowles is probably one of the only names that I can think of off the top of my head.
Why do you think he'd be available? Like
because he's in a similar contract situation as some of these other receivers that we're talking about, where he's not like holding in or holding out or anything like that. I don't think in Denver, but he needs to be paid.
So their backup right now, if they move on from him, is a guy named Matt Pert.
Name sounds familiar, but not for good reasons.
He started 6 NFL games.
Yeah, so I hear you. That's why. But my point is bringing up Garrett Bowles.
If they didn't have Bo Nix, if they were in the true rebuilding year they should be in, it would make sense. But they're not. They're going to try to make it work with Bo Nix.
There's no name. Like there's no name, and don't hit me with David Bakhtiari either, because David Bakhtiari is not playing football right now.
Again, there's so few good tackles in the league. If David Bakhtiari could play, he'd be a Jet. He'd be with Rodgers.
Yeah.
But like, if a team thought he could play, they'd bring him in for a workout because it's not just the Patriots. Everybody's desperate for tackles right now.
Yeah, I'm not even trying to be a jerk about it. Like, maybe I'm not thinking of somebody that somebody else can think of, because I can't think of anybody right now that I've scoured the depth charts. Like, there's nobody that I can think of right now that makes any sort of sense in terms of the team wanting to part ways with the player and being available via trade and all that kind of stuff. There's receivers that are available potentially via trade. Aiyuk is definitely available. Lamb might be available eventually. Your guy DK Metcalf, not this year, but next offseason might be available. That happens.
Yeah.
Trent Williams is the last really good tackle that I can think of that moved via trade. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And the guys that hit free agency are, the McGlincheys and the Jawan Taylors and like those types of players, not Trent Williams, right?
But that kind of player would be an upgrade. And if you want to go back to the offseason and say they maybe should have paid somebody, we can have that argument, but that doesn't really do anything right now.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like the other one is obviously Jonah Williams, and why didn't they do that? Ship has sailed. Like I agree with you. We both said on this show that we would have went after Jonah Williams in free agency. They didn't do it. My guess is the reason why they didn't do it is because they viewed him purely as a right tackle, and they thought that they had brought Onwenu back to play right tackle.
And because just the Packers thing, they don't do free agency.
That could have been it too. All right. Ted is in Wyoming. What's up, Ted?
Hi, guys. Love listening to your show.
Thank you.
For taking the call. I was curious about some things about the Brandon Aiyuk discussion. I'd heard on one show someone saying that he could contribute 2 more wins to the Patriots this season. Who really cares about that? Winning 4 or winning 7? And I'm wondering, along those lines, if Elliot Wolf is thinking, hey, our target for being a contender is not this year for sure, probably not 25. It's probably 26 when May's in the 3rd year of his rookie contract. So we need to sign people, draft, and do everything in line to have a 3-year window starting then to be a contender. which to me also suggests that you don't sign an expensive free agent now and eat the first 2 years of the contract when you really need those people in that 3-year period. I'm just wondering what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Ted. Yeah, we've been kicking that idea around for weeks, right? That when's the right time to strike and the window and all that kind of stuff. There's definitely a lot to what Ted is saying, and he laid it out nicely there. I would just say that when a player of Brandon Aiyuk's caliber becomes available via trade, you still aggressively pursue the player, right? You want as many good football players on the team as possible. So it's not like you're going to sit there and just not call the 49ers when a receiver like that comes available.
Right.
You're going to still do it if you can. But yeah, they realistically, I don't necessarily like looking at it of he would add 2 wins, he'd have 3 wins, because it changes so many. There's such a butterfly effect of everything that goes into it that I think it's hard to say in a vacuum this receiver would add X amount of wins. Because one, there's a little bit of just like human element to it.
Yeah.
Of like, if we came out to practice next week for the joint practice with the Eagles and Brandon Aiyuk was in a Patriots practice jersey, don't you think that the whole mantra around the team, the juice from the fans, the confidence, that all those, like, it all improves, right? Like everybody's going to be jacked up for that. Second, I've always subscribed to the fact that it's like an offensive hierarchy, right? Like Brandon Aiyuk puts everybody in the proper spot in the pecking order. So it's not just taking his 1,300 yards from the Niners last year and putting it into the Patriots offense. He makes Pop Douglas better. He makes Jalen Polk a little bit better. He makes Baker a little bit better. He makes Hunter Henry a little bit better. He makes your run game a little bit better, right? Like all of these elements kind of improve just because now you have like this bona fide number one receiver that it all funnels through and around. And that's why I really felt like if they could pull off this trade this year, and granted this is a big if they could have gotten just representable quarterback and line play this year with these skill players, I thought they could have made the playoffs. And when I say that, just keep in mind what that means now in today's NFL. Like we talk about this off the air about baseball all the time now too, right? There's 7 teams in the AFC that make the playoffs. The Steelers were a 10-win team last year and made the playoffs. The Patriots beat the Steelers with Bailey Zappi as quarterback in a Thursday night game last year. The Packers were 9-8 and made the playoffs in the NFC. So I'm not sitting here and telling you that they're going to beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game because they have Brandon Aiyuk. Just don't remember the gap between the bad teams and like the mediocre teams like really isn't that high. Like were the Patriots that much worse than the Steelers were last year? Probably not.
Yeah, I also just think you don't a bigger picture. You don't want losing to become habitual.
Yeah.
Like they had their down year last year and maybe they took their foot off the gas at the end and got the draft pick and all that, but you start going on with that for 2, 3, 4 years and suddenly you forget how to get out of it.
Yeah.
And you never want bad seasons. They're necessary sometimes. A season like that sometimes is necessary, but you want it to be isolated. You shouldn't have to have multiple. And so to say, well, Brandon Aiyuk adds a couple wins, but we don't want to go there yet. Nope. Yeah. That's once you start having that approach, get out. Somebody else has to run the team.
Yeah.
You should be in there trying to win as many games as possible.
Yeah. I really, we all would have done it. This was up to Brandon Aiyuk, and Brandon Aiyuk decided he didn't want to come here. Like that. That's how I'm going to look at it. That's how I feel it went. Question here from Kyle in the email about Matthew Judon. And it is a good point to bring up, and then we can get into our 3 up, 3 down.
We have another call, too.
Yes. Lots of calls and emails today.
Good,
I appreciate it. Thanks for all this. For the 101st episode. Did I say that already?
I don't know if you did, but
101.
You knew it was the 100th last week. You just didn't think it was a big deal.
No, I just totally forgot.
No, you didn't think it was a big deal.
Well, that's why I totally forgot. But we appreciate it. Like we're messing around. We obviously appreciate it. What do we calculate? That's like 8 days of listening to this show.
It's over 8 days, just not
8.3 days.
8.3 days.
If you played
of you
all the
listening to our
episodes
voices.
nonstop, it would be 8 days, 8+ days.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
We thank you genuinely for mean it sincerely. Matthew Judon. Back to football. I think it's time to trade. This is Kyle talking here. I think it's time to trade Matthew Judon no matter what you get back. He is becoming a problem player, and we need to get rid of him before he starts to affect the locker room negatively. I just want to say off the top to this email, it bummed me out watching him at the podium the other day.
Yeah.
Because this has been a guy for 3+ years that has been jovial, excited to be here, wanting to recruit whether he's successful or not. I know we always joke about it, with his social media, but he was a good Patriot. Like
he wasn't recruiting Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah, right. He was a fun guy to be around. Brought a ton of energy. I think he's great with the fans. I think he's great dude to be around here. He looked like a broken human being the other day, and it stunk to see like the life taken out of him from this saga and this situation, and that's not indicative of who Matthew Judon is. Like that's not Matthew Judon. We all know who. Not that we're best friends with him or anything, but we all know what he's like around the facility and in press conferences and stuff like that. And that just wasn't him in that press conference.
Right.
And that was tough to see. Would I trade him for no matter what? Like the email says, no matter what you get back? No, I would not do that. But we're at the point now where we're at a real fork in the road of either he needs to be here or he's not. And by be here, I mean he needs to be paid, even if it's just to wet his beak to make him happy. We're at the point where he needs to be compensated or he needs to be gone.
Yeah, and I think this actually brings me to another point I wanted to bring up. The fallout of the Brandon Aiyuk thing and some of what's leaked.
Yeah.
If I'm Matthew Judon, I'm sitting there saying, you were ready to give this guy $30 million. That $30 million is now just sitting there.
Right.
I want a new contract. What is Brandon Aiyuk, who's never set foot in this facility, do to earn that $30 million and obviously, like, Ayuk's a good player, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's money to be spent. There's money to be spent on the roster that's now not being spent. Matthew Judon sees that. I would not be surprised if there's another sort of something in lines of his contract issues in the fallout of this. The other thing, and there's a lot of unknowns here, but it's just something that crossed my mind. Part of that report was that the trade in place involved Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah.
Anytime you have a player come up in trade rumors, there's a conversation that needs to be had. Because you're essentially saying you don't want that guy. On top of that, Kendrick Bourne just signed a new contract with his team 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And there, in certain leagues, you're not allowed to trade players you re-signed within a certain period of time. In the NFL, you can, but nobody does it because it sends a really bad message to the player and honestly to the agent. The agent's a part of this because now he has to go back to his clients, right, and tell his clients that they should trust your team when, how do they know that you're not going to be the next one? And they just signed all these guys to extensions, and they're going to be looking at, I thought I was getting some security. We kept hearing Devon Gottschall talk about that security. I thought I was getting some security by signing this extension. I might have to move. I might have to drop it all and move at any given time. So maybe they talked it out with Kendrick Bourne ahead of time. Maybe he's good with it. Maybe they cleared it with his agent, all of that. It needs to be addressed, and it won't happen publicly, and we won't know the outcome of this. But putting a player in a trade request that just signed a contract is a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous game, and you hope, because that, to me, could be more of an issue in the locker room than the Judon stuff. I go back to, and it's apples and oranges a little bit because it's different leagues, but you remember last summer when the Celtics put Malcolm Brogdon in the original Marcus Smart trade and it fell through? And what happened? Malcolm Brogdon said, you know what? Fine, you don't want me, trade me.
Oh, yeah, no, they had to.
And then they had to trade him because he was involved in that. And I think he had recently signed, when that trade happened, when he got traded to the Celtics, I think there was a new contract or something. So, I don't mean to sound the alarm about it. I don't know. And Kendrick Bourne is the guy that would just be cool with it because he's just such a chill guy and what's best for the team. But that's the guy that's talked about wanting to be a part of the rebuild, wanting to help turn things around. He's also probably your best receiver.
Yeah.
As things stand right now, assuming he comes back from that knee. My eyebrow went up when I saw Kendrick Bourne reported as part of that. That is something I imagine the Patriots did not want out there unless the deal got done. And it is going to be a challenge for Gerard Mayo and Elliot Wolf. This is an early challenge for this new regime.
I agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
The only possible way that this doesn't fester into something bigger is he's played it in San Francisco before.
Right.
With Kyle Shanahan. They're a Super Bowl team. He's already paid. Like, in his shoes, you could look at it as Kendrick Bourne and say, as much as I want to be here and be a part of this and try to turn things around here, it's a pretty good situation to be traded into.
But it's also, did they have that conversation with him when it was first floated, or did he learn like we did the other night, right? Like, maybe he was. Maybe they went and said, look, we
they want a receiver back that can play this year for them.
Right. We need a guy that's going to be a little bit younger, not coming off the injury, a little more explosive. Like, we're sending you somewhere you're familiar, and maybe he signs off on it, but we don't know. I'm sure he'll be asked about it. We don't know, but it's an awkward conversation. And Gerard Mayo said the other day he had a good conversation with Kendrick Bourne, but it's not just Kendrick Bourne. It's, on one hand, other guys in the locker room, other guys who just signed extensions who now, understandably, may be looking over their shoulder whenever trade conversations come up. And it's also, I don't know actually who Kendrick Bourne's agent is, but when you're dealing with that agent and that agency in the future, it's going to be, well, my player wants to play for you. We need a little something more here because his agency is Disruptive Sports. I don't know.
They have a few Patriots receivers that are clients.
Do they? Okay.
I know Tyquan's a client of theirs as well, I think.
So, but it's more pending free agent clients or guys that want to, re-sign in the future that, all right, well, you're committing to my guy, but how do we know you're really committing to my guy?
Yeah. Last point on Judon, because I think you laid out the Bourne stuff nicely.
Yeah.
The Judon thing, that needs to be resolved one way or another. It's gone too far at this point, and now I'm not necessarily as worried as the emailer about the locker room and all that. I'm not worried. I'm just worried about Matthew Judon. Like, he's still got good football left in him. He's a great player. It's either going to be here or someplace else, but we're at the point now where the season's right around the corner. They need to make a decision. And he says he's going to play under the current contract because he has no choice, which to an extent he doesn't because he needs to play well to be paid next offseason because he's coming off the injury. So that's fair, but you don't want to put a player out there that's this unhappy with the situation. And for every Brandon Aiyuk rumor and all this kind of stuff, there's money going out of Foxborough right now, and it's not going to Matthew Judon. And
how does he not see that as a slight?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Kendall is in North Carolina. What's up, Kendall?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good.
All right, thanks. I want to ask y'all, how y'all think the wide receiver depth chart is going to shake out between now and week 1? And number 2, have y'all seen enough from Javon Baker that he could possibly be the starter X wide receiver? Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Kendall. Good question. I'm working on preliminary roster projection. Obviously, tomorrow night might change a few things. But I'll give you my 6 guys right now that I have at receiver. Obviously, we have Pop Douglas, Javon Baker, Jalen Polk, KJ Osborne. I'm ready with. I'm there for you with KJ Osborne. All right, we're on the same page now with him. KJ Osborne's on this team. So Pop Douglas, Polk, Baker, Osborne, and now for right now, depending on what happens with Kendrick Bourne, obviously with his situation, if he's off pup, then this changes things. If he isn't, then I'm sticking with this 6. I'm keeping both Rager and Tyquan for now because I feel like those 2 guys are going to be in a never-ending loop of position battle of who's going to get on the field each week to be the speed guy, right? Like the vertical stretch element to the offense. So I have both those guys on, which would mean that like guys like Juju and Kayshon Boutte are cut off the team right now.
So Kayshon Boutte, Kayshon Boutte's had a good couple practices here.
Yes.
He's popped more on my radar, and is Tyquan going to be healthy at the start of the season?
Good question, and it's definitely still up in the air with those 2 guys. Obviously, I'll probably do one more before the actual cutdown day in terms of projection, and I'm not ready to write this in Sharpie yet. But my thing with Kayshon Boutte is that his skill set is so redundant to the other guys that they have on the roster, whereas at least with Rager and Taekwon, they bring a different element than the other players. Like, if just assume everybody's healthy for a second, right? How does Kayshon Boutte get on the field over Bourne, Polk, and Baker and Osborne? All 4 of those guys play exactly the same style, essentially, as him. Like, similar body types, similar roles, everything. So there's basically 4 guys in his way in that role. I just don't see how he gets on the field. And yeah, if you want to make the argument that they're keeping him on the roster because of developmental upside and things like that, fine. Yeah. But now we're in year 2. Like, how long are you going to keep a guy because he might be the guy that we saw in LSU as a freshman, right?
Well, I mean, why are you going to keep Taekwon and Rager? Neither of those guys. It's the same skill set, and you can probably get Rager on the practice squad.
I don't think
Taekwon on the practice squad.
Yeah, but I think Taekwon's more likely on the practice squad than Rager.
So my point is, you can get one on the practice squad. Boutte you might lose. I think having depth would be good. I don't know. I think it's pretty even right now between them. I wouldn't keep Taekwon and Rager. That's redundant. You can definitely get one of those guys on the practice squad if you want to keep them both in the building. At that point, I would either give the roster spot to Boutte or give it to like another corner or a lineman or something.
Yeah, I could see maybe only carrying 5. My argument with Rager and Taekwon both making it is more that they've been kind of trading off like who's hot and who's not. Like right now, I would say that Rager has been okay the last couple of days. Then like Taekwon had like, a stretch there where he was making some plays. And then Rager in the non-padded practices probably stood out a little. You know what I mean? Like they keep seesawing back and forth.
Right.
So I wonder if that battle just continues throughout the season, and it's almost like riding the hot goalie, right? It's like you ride the hot hand of like which speed guy is the guy that's popping in practice and is playing well on Sundays and all that kind of stuff. I just think that the way that I look at it is that they might lean a little bit more towards true speed, and dynamic, speed than a guy like Kayshon Boutte. And the other thing with Boutte that I've noticed at least is that he's. Some of the catches that he's made are not against Christian Gonzalez and Jonathan Jones and, guys that are going to be here in terms of cornerbacks. So let's see what he does, against some better corners. Like maybe he does earn some reps, but we always talk about who's on what field or what group or whatever. And Boutte has been pretty regularly with like the 3s, or maybe like a couple 2s reps here and there too. So I don't think he's trending upwards in that sense. As you could tell on that list, Juju Smith-Schuster is not touching.
He's not close.
No, not close. To the second question with Javon Baker, starting X receiver. This segues into our ups and downs.
Do you want to take this last call?
You want to take the last call? Then we'll do that.
That's kind enough to wait this long.
That's fair. Hassan is in Springfield. What's up, Hassan?
How you doing? So going back to that question, about the offensive linemen. There's guys like Laremy Tunsil, Tristan Ward, Teron Armstead, Jordan Mailata, Penei Sewell. There's guys like that even though they have their contracts, there's still guys like that we can go after.
Yeah, Hassan, I mean, you think the Lions are going to trade Penei Sewell to the Patriots? Like, realistically, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just, like, realistically.
No. Yeah, I know what you're saying. No, but, you can throw like 2 or 3 first rounders in there.
Yeah, I mean,
Mailata, Teron Armstead,
I
guys like that who are.
Yeah.
I mean,
I hear you, Hassan. Thank you for the call. I'm not trying to be an a-hole. Yes, if you threw 3 first-round picks at a team, at the Texans for Laremy Tunsil, would they maybe pick up the phone and listen? Like, possible, right? But that's not realistic.
You better have every other piece in place when you make that move, and this team doesn't.
No, I mean, you're not making that move.
Right.
Tristan Wirfs literally just signed a record-breaking extension like 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Like, he's not going anywhere. Penei Sewell is maybe, other than Trent Williams, is probably the second-best tackle in football. He's not going anywhere.
Right.
Laremy Tunsil is a top 10 tackle in the NFL on a team that's trying to win. So he's not going anywhere. I hear you. We're all trying to look for tackles. I get it. But once you start to get into this, yes, if you call the team that maybe is in that middle category, and you find a team as a starting tackle you like that's sort of in the middle. I did briefly check in on the chat, like a guy like Jedrick Wills from the Cleveland Browns,
Yeah.
who's probably near the end here, closer to the end than the beginning. But if you called the Browns right now and you gave them if you overpaid for the player, could you convince them to take it? Yeah, maybe. Right? Like if you're giving up like a second-round pick for him, which is a lot.
You're doing the Rams thing at that point where you're just blowing through all the picks to add players, but you have to have enough of a core in place, and they don't. Somebody also in the tweeted at us about Jack Conklin.
Yeah.
That team's got to win. They gave Deshaun Watson all that money, and Stefanski just kind of blew out half his staff to save his own ass. Like,
yep.
They're not moving on from tackles right now.
All right, let's get into 3 up, 3 down. I wish that they could trade for Penny Sewell. Like, I wish he was available. That's just
That'd be great. It solved a lot of problems.
That's not the world we're living. All right, I like to say we're a positive show, so I'm going to start with the ups. Okay. My number one up, and we're calling this from padded practices. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, because last time we did a show, had there been a padded practice?
Yeah, there have been, I think, the first couple.
Oh, all right, whatever.
But,
sure, padded practice.
Yeah, whatever. Last week, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Number one up, Hunter Henry.
Okay.
I think Hunter Henry's been great. He's come alive here in this second week of camp, making some plays down the field, which I think this AV got Stefanski in my head. This AVP offense, you look at David Njoku. He's not David Njoku. He's not that explosive of an athlete, but they tend to target tight ends maybe a little bit further down the field than other teams do. This isn't like quick 3-yard slants all the time. Although he's had a couple of those, beating up linebackers in the middle of the field. I still feel like when we watch one-on-ones and things, like his red zone work is still phenomenal. I think he's going to be a big deal in the red zone still if they have the quarterback play for it. I look at Hunter Henry. I think he's been good. There's been some questions of, 29 years old, getting up there in age a little bit. Like, how much does he have left in the tank? He looks spry. He looks explosive out there. I thought he's been good this last week.
I think it's been cool. I feel like him and Jalen Hawkins have had a ton of battles in this camp.
Yeah.
And he's probably gotten Hawkins more than Hawkins has gotten him, but Hawkins has gotten him a few times. For a team that's had trouble covering tight ends, Hawkins sticking with him has been encouraging, but Henry's looked good.
All right. Who you got?
I wanted to try not to overlap, but since you didn't drop this guy first, Mike Onwenu.
Yeah.
He's been the best player in camp.
Yeah.
And it's only gotten better as the pads have come on, and boy, do they need it. But one-on-ones, team drills, whatever you want to call it, he's just been dominant.
The one-on-one stuff I've never seen anything like it. And granted, I say this all the time, I haven't been covering the team for 30 years, right? So I don't go back to like Matt Light and Logan Mankins and those guys. But he is legitimately unbeatable. Like, you cannot get around him in a one-on-one. He just with a one-handed, right-handed punch to Keon White's chest, dropped Keon White to the ground with like a forearm shiver. That's a 285-pound, just gigantic athlete that he just tossed like a rag doll to the ground. He's been phenomenal. I was worried a little bit about his weight when we came into training camp. That seemed to be a little bit of a concern there. Maybe why he's playing inside and not outside right now. But I don't think it's mattered even a little bit. Like, I figure out what's going on around him, right? But I concur. I had him on my ups last week, so I wanted to name some different guys this week, but I concur. He's been the best player in camp. Who's number 2 on your list?
Keon White, who outside of that one rep against Mike Onwenu has also been really freaking good, which makes it all the more impressive for Mike Onwenu. But you talk about a guy who looks poised for like a year 2 jump. Yeah, he's been a wrecker in the run game. He's been effective as a pass rusher. He's playing just a lot more confident. He kind of talked about this, I think it was last week when he spoke, that last year he was more just focused on not messing up his assignment. This year he's more focused. It's more of an aggressive attacking mentality, and you see that in practice when he's on the field. So he's been good. Yeah,
his issues. He played tight end in college for a while. Then he flipped over to defense. And even though he was a super senior, he didn't play a ton of defense at the college level. And so all of his issues were like block recognition, instincts, hand placement, like getting off blocks. He's a freak athlete. Like, he has all the athleticism and all the upside in the world. But it was a lot of just like learning the nuances and like getting up to speed with the game. So if you can add that element to just the freak raw athleticism, then you're going to have a player on your hands. And that's the leap that he's trying to make now. the one thing I'll say about Keon White, because I'm not the biggest Keon White guy.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I see with him is that I worry about the sack production and like the true finishing. He can disrupt. He's going to be a wrecking ball. And
I think the idea
that'll translate against the run. But is he just Anthony Jennings, or is he like something more than that?
I think he's like a better version of Anthony Jennings. I think the idea is because Jennings is as much of a penetrator as he is.
Yeah.
And I think the idea is he's going to flush in the pass rush. He's going to flush. He's going to chase towards the finisher on the other side, which
Uche or someone like that.
Hopefully Matthew Judon, but if not Josh Uche, or maybe down the road they add a guy. But I think he's more that because he can get in there quick and then set it up for somebody on the other side to finish. And if we're not seeing it because Matthew Judon hasn't been out there a ton, and you don't really scheme up this way in training camp, he's gonna be more effective when Matthew Judon's on the other side. He's going to be getting more one-on-ones, and we know he can win strongly in that regard, and it'll allow him to be a little more effective as a finisher. There's
no doubt in my mind that he can cause havoc.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between havoc and production, right? Like maybe it's like havoc like Trey Flowers used to cause havoc, where Trey Flowers would be one of those guys that if you looked at PFF and their pressure numbers and their hurry numbers and all that kind of stuff, he was like top 10, top 15 amongst edge rushers. Maybe that's Keon White, which is totally fine. But if Judon and Barmore are both out of this defense, then who's going to sack the quarterback, right? Like that's sacking the quarterback is how you get off the field on third down.
Right. Well, that's where we'll get to next offseason.
Yeah.
It's still a work in progress.
Yeah.
Up front.
These are the things that like with this team you start to peel back the onions, the layer of the onion, and you realize like, oh, okay, this is why this team's not a playoff.
This is why you don't trade 3 picks for Penei Sewell.
Yeah. Right.
You need these kinds of
players. Exactly. All right. I can't wait for this one. My second up. You ready for this?
Is it a quarterback?
No, but there's a quarterback on my list.
The quarterback strike me. I don't know. Who is it? Taekwon?
Chad Ryland.
Really?
I feel like Chad Ryland's been pretty good. Am I wrong?
You don't watch the kickers.
I feel like Chad Ryland's been better than Joey Sly.
I wouldn't say that.
It's close.
He has one more make, but Sly hit the live kick, the 57-yarder, the run on. I had the kickers overall as the downs.
It really?
Yeah.
So you still think this is an issue?
Yeah.
I put Chad Ryland on here just to mess with you. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't. So you didn't watch the kickers. You were just going off vibes.
Not even one bit.
Neither. I don't feel overly confident in either one. Like I don't think they've both sucked, but nobody's like really claimed the job. And the game's going to be big, but yesterday was probably their best day. They each had a miss, but yesterday was probably their best day, but it hasn't been convincing from either one of them.
I just feel like maybe I'm strictly going off vibes, but the like competition does seem to have like pushed him maybe a little bit. Like it's not like he's been awful.
No, neither one of them has been awful, but neither one of them has been great either. And I think you were kind of hoping. I don't feel so. Yesterday, right? The live kick. Jacoby Brissett. I forget what happened. I think it was a sack. Something. This is a live 1-minute drill. It was a sack. Maybe it was a false start. They're in 4th and long. Hits KJ Osborne over the middle, like really good throw and catch.
Yeah.
Osborne up over 2 defenders on a 4th. All right, so you keep going, but at this point, there's time off the clock. They keep moving. They end up with a 53-yard field goal. He misses wide left.
Okay, can I give you my reel up now because I was just messing with you on Chad Ryland.
Well, all right, so we'll get back to the kickers.
I couldn't help myself.
I thought you were gonna say Joe Milton.
Did you? Are you like Brian Hines? Do you like sneak like to behind the goalpost? Because the other day, I swear to God, I saw, and I'm sorry, Brian, but this is just too funny. I saw him like go into like the fan section so that he could get a better view, and security came up to him because they thought that he was a fan that was just like trying to sneak onto the field when he came back into the media area. So because where I sit when we sit up on the ramps, you can't tell if the kick's going in or not. You just can't. Are you texting Brian right now?
I'm texting him.
It was too funny. I thought he was going to get booted from practice.
When he was over there by the goalpost, when he was walking back to the media?
When he's walking back to the media tent, some security kid went right up to him and was like, I need to see your credentials.
Well, so he walks in front through the crowd. I walk through the back where it's easier to do that. No, me.
Like where Bedard sits.
Yeah. Me, Brian, Mike Cadlick, sometimes Taylor, and Mike Reese all go over to watch the field goals. Every time. That's what we do.
I give you props. I do.
And we compare notes and we make sure we have the distances right. Because the thing you have the better angle on, I've texted you for this once or twice. It is tough to see from our angle, especially when they're not using the change. No, where the ball's spotted, like what the yard line is. But no, we all go over there because you can't see otherwise.
I know.
And we're right behind it, and we get a really good view. And when they miss, we're all just we call it.
That's awesome. I'm a little jealous. I am.
If you ever come down from your perch and watch practice with the common folk, you could join us. And I've met Catch-22. Actually, this is funny.
I love my perch.
I've met Catch-22 listeners down there because you are in the crowd. And some guy came up to me the other day and goes, he comes up to me and goes, "Hey, Evan." No, and I was in the middle, as they're getting ready to kick. And I'm like, "Yeah, hey, it's Alex." And he starts laughing. And I kind of felt like I blew him off because I'm trying to watch the kicks. We're trying to count the yardage where they're spotting the ball. So I go up to him after they're done kicking. I just go up to him. He was still standing there. I was like, "Hey, nice to meet you." I didn't really mean to blow you off. I was focusing on the kicks. And he goes, "No, I'm sorry. I thought I was joking calling you Evan." And I was like, "I kind of figured you were, but it happens enough that I'm never really sure." But I don't remember the fan's name, but I appreciate you saying hi. I appreciate you listening to the show. I did not mean to blow you off. I apologize if it came across like that. And I did. It took me a second. I did understand you were joking.
Okay. All right. That's enough on the kickers. My real second up here, KJ Osborne.
He's been really good.
KJ Osborne's come alive. I was on the fence a little bit about it. Didn't really see it quite yet. But he's come alive. He's made some plays down the field. Just one of those guys that's just a sturdy, size, speed type of player. Perfect fit for what they want to do because I'm sure he can block a little bit too. I haven't really studied, film yet of it, so we'll see in games in terms of blocking and things like that. It's much easier to tell. But, you can see that he's got comfortability in this system because it's a lot of overlap from what he was doing in Minnesota. When you start talking about base receivers, not necessarily the most flashiest of guys, but just the guy on 1st and 10 at the 25 who's going to be on the field when the Patriots come to play Week 1 against the Bengals. Osborne, I think, is going to be in that mix because he brings all those elements to it. He can line up in multiple spots. He can play on the outside. He can block. He can run routes down the field. He's been impressive. He's been much better and has really come on here in the second week.
Yeah, he looks really good. He could play a sneaky big role for this team because when we get to Week 1, Kendrick Bourne's not ready to start the season. Pop Douglas he's going to be good, but his role is going to be what it is. He's not going to be a full-time on-the-field player. And the rookies that look good, but they're rookies, and you like to be able to ease them in.
Yeah.
That leaves KJ Osborne as kind of the guy to start things off for Jacoby Brissett. I don't think it'll stay that way. The rookies will emerge. Kendrick Bourne will come back, but he could be their most targeted receiver through the first month or so.
Agreed. Early on in the year, it definitely feels like Osborne, Pop, and then whether Bourne is healthy or not will be a question. But Osborne, Pop, and then maybe even Rager or Thornton as the speed guy on the outside. I know that fans are going to hear that and be we want to see the rookies and be disappointed in this. But don't be surprised if you see quite a bit of those guys. Polk might be the one exception. He might be able to crack the top 3 instantly just because of how steady he is. But Osborne and Bourne are going to play a lot for this team this year. And so I would just prepare for that. Who's your number 3 down?
Number 3 down.
Are
we on ups or downs? I just lost track there. So I just because I don't know that these have been the best. Some of the 3 best, but I want to give these guys mention because they deserve it, especially going to the preseason game.
Yep.
2 UDFAs that have stood out to me.
Yep.
Running back Terrell Jennings.
Agreed.
Safety Del Pettis.
Yeah.
They've been all over the field. Jennings runs really hard.
Got a little wiggle to him too.
Great motor. Yeah, did have a nice spin move the other day, and he's going to be a preseason beast. I'm putting it nobody's Ralph Webb, but that's kind of...
I was just about to say Ralph
Nobody's Ralph Webb, but he's going to, get the
greatest preseason player of all time.
Did he even ever end up on a practice squad
I think he was on a practice squad. I think he bounced around some teams.
But, with these guys, with these UDFAs, especially, we're post the Bill Belichick era where you could count on a guy making it, and in a weaker UDFA class, and these 2 guys, too, their positions, there's a lot of depth ahead of them. You just got to kind of play with energy and to get noticed, and that's what you got to do. And I think Terrell Jennings, Ralph Webb was on a few practice squads and in the CFL.
Oh, come on, you didn't know that?
No, I didn't. I'm as surprised as you. Terrell Jennings has done kind of what you want from a UDFA to stand out in that spot and practice squad candidate. We know you always need running back depth, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he gets on the practice squad and comes along later on. Del Pettis, sort of same thing. Flying around the secondary. He had a pass breakup the other day. Hunter Henry, I think it was Saturday.
Yeah.
Hunter Henry was like unguardable the whole day except this one play in 11-on-11, live, like 2 minute. Del Pettis clamped him in the end zone and knocked the ball away. And he's been the live tackling period. He was hitting and he made a couple tackles. And again, there's safety depth. And I don't know if there's a spot for him on the roster, but practice squad comes up later. These are just two guys to watch in the preseason game because they deserve recognition for what they've done because they've approached this the right way, being in a position where there's not a clear or even unclear path to a roster spot, and they're probably more camp bodies, but they've made themselves known.
Fair enough. It's a good shout. I would lean towards Terrell Jennings being on the team right now. I just feel like when I was doing the roster projection, and granted a lot could change if he bombs tomorrow night, but wouldn't you almost prefer in most spots for them to go like youth and ceiling or upside over like no offense meaning towards this, but like JaMychal Hasty, for example, what JaMychal Hasty is in the league, right? Like he's at best like a Brandon Bolden type that's going to play in the kicking game and is an emergency running back and like that kind of thing. Whereas Terrell Jennings might have something.
Well, I don't know. Hasty's a little more than that. He's quicker. He can catch the ball. They don't really have that pass catching back.
Well, they have Gibson.
I guess they have depth there. I would more liken it to, if we want to go the other way, like Joshua Bledsoe versus Del Pettis.
Yeah, I mean, either way is fine. And, or even Marte Mapu at this point needs to get on the field.
We'll get to Marte Mapu.
He just needs to get on the field.
We'll get to Marte Mapu.
Yeah. Deuce has a great nickname for him, but I'll tell you off the air.
Okay.
I just really feel like Terrell Jennings is – I feel myself in all spots of the roster, even at quarterback, like with Milton and Zappi, right? Like just the youth and the upside, it needs to trump veteran at this point, right? Like needs to – and I'm not talking about like keeping Jaheim Bell over Hunter Henry. Like,
right.
I'm talking about like if it's a battle between JaMychal Hasty and Terrell Jennings, I'm going Terrell Jennings. If it's a battle between Milton and Zappi, I'm going Milton, right? Like those types of spots. And I feel like there's like 4 or 5 of those coin tosses. I'll give you another one. Cornerback. I'm going Marcellus Dial, Isaiah Bolden over Marco Wilson, Sean Wade. Because I just know Marco Wilson and Sean Wade are back end of the roster guys in the NFL.
Yeah.
There might be some upside there with Bolden and Dial. Dial, I think, has been okay.
Where do you put Alex Austin in that?
I still have him on the team,
Okay.
but we'll get to him in a second. Did you give all 3 of your ups?
I had one more on here in case we overlapped.
Yeah.
Gerard Mayo.
A coaching up.
I
in
just think
practice.
There was a lot of talk about, player friendly. How is that going to work?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. Yep.
He might be player friendly in the locker room. We've heard about the like the ping pong table and things like that.
Yeah.
He is drilling these guys.
He
These
is.
have been long, intense practices, hot days, 11-on-11 live tackling.
Yeah.
He's not taking it easy on him on the field, and I think this team needs that, and I think that's good. And when I say Gerard Mayo, it's the coaching staff as a whole. It's not just him scripting these, but to get from day one right into 11-on-11, no nonsense, and it's nonstop. It's 2+ hour practices just about every day. Does this mean he's going to be a good coach? Does this mean he's the guy post Bill Belichick? I don't know. It's still way too early. It's a small thing, but for where we're at right now, I didn't think they were going to drill him this hard.
I've been impressed that this has been, I would say, I don't want to, it's been 7 years now, so I can't, I'd have to go back and really look at like 2019, right? Like I don't remember off the top of my head. The last couple of Bill Belichick training camps, though, this has been a more intense physical training camp.
Much.
We used to talk about, like, has Bill gone soft, right? Like, they'd be out of pads some days. They wouldn't be tackling to the ground. That's not very common. Tackling to the ground is not very common league-wide, like, let alone just Bill versus Gerard. The other thing is we were talking to him the other day before practice, and somebody asked him about this, like, what was with the live tackling? Like, what's the theory? What's the mindset there? And he said something about getting them ready for it in games, but he also said that it's for evaluation purposes. because to him it's like, if you're a defensive player, it's all well and good to tap the guy on the butt on his way by, but if you don't tackle him to the ground, how do I know if you can actually do it?
Right.
And I thought that was impressive too, because it's like this is an evaluation thing for him, that he wants to see who's a real football player, not who's great in shorts and shells or whatever.
Who can play football?
Who can play actual tackle football. And I didn't expect that out of him. I thought this was going to be what we have seen in other places, in Miami, Philly, the Rams, right? Like, kind of country club vibes, right?
Nope.
No.
Maybe that's going on behind the scenes again. I know a lot of people got freaked out about that players' lounge or whatever.
Yeah.
They've earned the players' lounge based on these practices.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a stretch to say that.
All right. Downs.
Yeah.
My number one down is the entire offensive tackle situation.
Can we just say the line?
No, I think the interior line is going to be okay. I think Onwenu, Andrews, Sidiso is solid.
But the depth. I mean, Marte Mapu, not Marte Mapu.
Mafi?
Antonio Mafi can't get a snap off.
Okay, but
All right, sorry. It's here. It's tackles.
No, just in season, though, because I'm actually kind of bullish on the interior. Like, I think City, Andrews, and Onwenu is a really good start to an interior of an offensive line. Like, could actually be almost a plus, I would say, for them offensively. Those are three good players in there.
Sure.
Nick Leverett's okay as like a swing backup.
Good depth player.
Yeah. And then Layden Robinson will be here, and hopefully he develops into a guy too.
Sure.
So I don't think you have to go all the way down to Mafi is my point, right?
Okay, fair enough.
Or like your guy Michael B. Jordan or whatever, right? We don't have
Michael Jordan. Why are you doing that?
Because he's not Michael Jordan.
But he's not Michael B. Jordan either.
The whole tackle situation is a dumpster fire. It's a dumpster fire. First of all, Chuks Okorafor, who's like the one guy that has NFL tape for an extended period, like a high volume of starting caliber NFL tape, has been in sweatpants, right, the last couple of days. He's not healthy. He's not out there. Caden Wallace has, after a good start to pads, has sort of waned a little bit. I think he's going through the rookie growing pains right now, and maybe we need to pump the brakes a little bit on him. He's had some rough reps in one-on-ones. He was better in 11s yesterday, I felt like. That stood out to me. But we started, pads with him being at left tackle, and I myself included, like, I was very excited about it.
Yeah.
We're a long ways away from that right now with him. And your starting tackles right now in team periods are Vidarian Lowe and Calvin Anderson. If you had told me that Vidarian Lowe was going to make this team to start camp, I would have told you no. Right? Like, I would have had him off the roster. And now there's a chance. I mean, granted, there's a couple weeks left here, and we're not there yet, but there's a chance that Vidarian Lowe is gonna start for this team at left tackle against the Bengals in Week 1, with Trey Hendrickson coming off his left edge. Like, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. That's not good. That can't happen. So one of two things needs to happen. One, they need to pull a rabbit out of their hat and find an external solution, right? We had the caller call in and say, go offer the Detroit Lions 3 first-round picks for Penny Sewell. That's not happening, right? But you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Maybe we're not thinking of a name that exists. Go get him. Number 2, they need to get Caden Wallace back to being on the fast track. Whatever it takes, right? Like, I don't know what it takes. I'm not Scott Peters. I'm not an offensive line coach. But get him up to speed. Get him ready, because he's going to have to play early. Or I guess there's 3. Number 3, Mike Onwenu's been the best player in camp. Can they get by with Nick Leverett or Layden Robinson at right guard to the point where he can play right tackle? And then maybe you're only worrying about one tackle spot. Maybe Chuks goes back over to the left for the time being, and you go with that line instead. I can't imagine that they're looking at Vidarian Lowe and Calvin Anderson and loving what they're seeing. It just would be impossible to say that. So the whole situation's a mess. As we knew it would be.
Right. No, we're here 2 weeks into camp. Gerard Mayo has said, like, the timeline for them wanting to know their starting offensive line is the second preseason game, so basically in a week. It doesn't feel like they've made any progress.
No.
It all still feels wide open. Chuks Okorafor will be somewhere, assuming he's healthy.
Right.
That's pretty much as I can say definitively at this point. Hopefully, the game adds some clarity. If Vidarian Lowe goes out there and plays poorly, that should be the sign. All right, we got to get Caden Wallace ready. If he goes out there and plays well, all right, maybe give him another week. But
it felt like we had some momentum there. The first 3 or 4 padded practices were okay. The short yardage practice was terrible.
I don't know why they dropped Caden Wallace out of the top group.
So the theories are, one, it wasn't as good as we all thought it was, which is definitely possible, right? Number two, is there a chance that they wanted to give Drake May at least something on the line that was starting caliber, right? Like maybe they felt like, all right, let's just get him a tackle.
Yeah, but that's such a weird...
Because the reps are the reps, though, right?
I get that, but no, but they're not, because you want to build continuity.
That's fair.
So...
That's fair. It's been bad. And they haven't run the ball very well the last handful of practices. That's kind of gone away after a good start. The pass pro is okay. Like, it's not as bad as I would think it would be, but I'm still marking down pressures more times than I would like. It's been bad. And they need to. I would say they need to figure it out, but I don't even know what. I don't know how
they. No, this is, and it goes to the Drake May timeline, right? They're still going to be working well into the season to find their best 5 at this point, because I don't want to say they've wasted time. Guys have been hurt, but they've lost a lot of time moving things around so far.
Yep. All right. What do you got?
For the downs?
Yes.
So just kind of grouping together the players that needed to get on the field that haven't been on the field.
Yeah. Mapu.
Marte Mapu, Tyquan Thornton.
Yep.
Those are really the 2 big ones, I guess. I don't think I'm missing. I mean, I guess a core 4, like, and it's not down and oh, they suck. Like, I don't want to pick on guys for being hurt, but you can't make the club from the tub. And talk about Marte Mapu. We've seen Jalen Hawkins get a ton of reps. Del Pettis is coming on. Is he getting past? Tyquan Thornton had built that momentum, but now he's dealing with a soft tissue issue. I hate saying that. He's limited. Keishon Booty's starting to come on. Like, that's a guy that could pass him. Just... These guys are getting passed. These are guys that need to be on the field, and they're getting passed.
Marte Mapu in particular.
Yeah.
I still have
at least Thornton put out some good work.
I still have him on just because of 3rd-round pick, 2nd year. It hasn't been play that he's not making the team. It's health, right? So for right now.
Well, let me ask you this. At what point, because he's behind. I think we can all acknowledge that. At what point does he just open the year on PUP?
Well, it can't be on PUP, right? Because he's practiced.
Oh, that's right. He did start practice.
So he can injure reserve. So they could.
Are you gonna? You get 2 designated return spots.
Yeah, and I would assume that one is going to go to Christian Barmore,
and the other's probably going to go. Oh no, Cole Strange is on PUP.
Yeah. So
do you use it on Thornton? Do you use it on Mapu? Do you use it on?
My guess is that Thornton is closer than Mapu is.
Yeah.
But we'll see. You have 2 spots. If there's even a remote chance that Christian Barmore can play this year, he's got to be one of them.
And for the record, because we had to look the rule up the other day, so it's
on cutdown day.
You have to place them on IR on cutdown day, and of the guys you place on IR that day, it's not all right. We're going to place 5 guys on IR today, and we'll decide which 2 come back later. It's you have to name 2 guys that day. So if you name Barmore, and I'm with you, like if there's even an outside chance, you name him.
Yeah.
But if you name Barmore and then he can't come back, you don't then get to go and say, well, we also placed Marte Mapu on IR on cutdown day, so he's come back. No, that's out. So
you burned it.
I would still leave the spot for him.
Yeah.
Like you said, absolutely, but you don't get to figure it out later.
Yeah, so it's on cutdown day. On cutdown day, they will come out with a release, and I'm hoping that we're going to do it differently this year because they did it the other way for years because of you-know-who. But they come out with a release where it says, we released these players, we waived these players, we IR'd these players.
Well, they always did that. It just came out at like 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, right. But then we would also have to like reverse engineer the roster from there, right?
Right.
So regardless, released is veteran players with more than 4 accrued seasons are not subject to waivers, right?
Yeah.
So they just get outright released and are street free agents. Then you have waived. Those are the guys that do go through waivers, obviously. And then they would have like the IR end of year IR guys. So, you could reach an injury settlement, but let's not get too caught up in the minutia. So now when they submit to the league, this is our team. When they go and submit those IR guys that in the past would be done for the year, you can now designate 2 guys in that process that could come back still.
And they still have to miss, I think it's 4 games, just like PUP and everybody else.
Yeah.
And then it's the same process from there where they practice, they're designated to return, and it's 21 days to actually put them on the roster.
Yep. Okay. Next down for me.
Yep.
Headlined by Alex Austin, but just the cornerback depth in general I think is now becoming a little bit of an issue. Maybe it's also exacerbated by the fact that Gonzalez is just kind of. We need a little bit more out of Christian Gonzalez. I think we all can say that. I'm not panicked at all by Christian Gonzalez. I'm not worried about it. But in terms of practice performance, you have to call a spade, right? And you need a little bit more out of them. But more importantly to me, it's Marcus Jones is hurt again.
Yep.
Alex Austin's been not very good.
I think he's been fine. We might have set the expectations for him a little too high.
Sure, that's probably fair.
He's been about what you would think like a UDFA
fourth,
back
fifth
end
corner.
Yeah.
I just every single day that goes by, I just wonder more and more if you put in the call to Stephon Gilmore.
Make the call
Because
and we're at the point now. Finish your point.
We're on the same page here. We're at the point now where this is like actually becoming a little bit worrisome. It's not overly worrisome yet because I still think Gonzalez and Jonathan Jones is a really, really solid start. And then whoever fills in as the nickel, as the third corner, whatever you want to call it, that guy's going to get favorable matchups. It's not going to be like he's going to be out there against Jamar Chase, right? But at the same time, that group, we were bullish on the depth there. I'm not as bullish on it anymore.
I'm not either. I'm with you. To the last point you made, I this year it's fine. I think some of the hope was Isaiah Bolden, second-year player.
Yeah.
Alex Austin, second-year player. Marcellus Dial, rookie, was like John Jones, 31. And of all the guys they re-signed, he's not one.
Yeah.
And he's entering a contract year, so that's notable. I think the hope was one of these guys would emerge to, be the 3 this year and then maybe become the 2 next year.
Right.
And next to Gonzalez. And you certainly haven't seen that. To the first point, when I said we're at that point, it wasn't even like we're at that point where I'm petrified about the depth. I've been saying for a while, I think part of the reason Gilmore hasn't signed is simply I'm Stephon Gilmore. I'm a defensive player of the year. I don't need to run wind sprints for the first 2 weeks of camp.
Yeah.
We're at the point now where it's like, this is when those veterans are like, I'm going to sit out the dog days of camp. Dog days are over. Like, if he wants to play this year, now we're in the window where he's probably going to sign within the next week or two. What was Zeke last year? Zeke was
I was just about to bring this up. So Zeke, his very first practice with the Patriots was in Green Bay.
It was that joint practice.
Joint practice,
so going into the second preseason game, which makes sense because you want to get out there for like a drive.
So the in-stadium practice that year would have been this Friday. It's going to be Sunday with the season ticket holders out at training camp instead. And so Zeke signed right like the next day, and then was his first practice with the Patriots was in Green Bay. So it'd be the equivalent of like the Tuesday joint practice with Philadelphia would be the practice that they got him in there.
But I just noticed this because I'm watching on here. The shadow of the wires on your shirt makes like a perfect 50. That just well, now you moved, you ruined it, but that just bugged me out.
Oh,
I'll show you a picture.
I'd wear 50. It's a good number. All right, we have to wrap. So
Gilmore. We're
next down.
In place from the sign. Well, I had the kickers.
Oh yeah,
and we already talked about that. So.
All right, do you have any more?
No, that's pretty much it. There haven't been that many like glaring offensive line.
Yeah.
It's the big one. Like, it's been a solid competitive camp.
Okay, can I give you just one that is not I hate to put him as a down because it's not a true down because there's just so much upside and potential there. But the frustrations of like Javon Baker are starting to come out a little bit for me.
The drops are starting to add up a little bit.
The drops are starting to add up a little bit, and he's starting to show, which is what some of the things in college. And again, like he gets open, which is the most important thing. Like I still have a lot of hope for him, and I'm not trying to kill him, but the knock on him in college was consistency, right? Like down in and down out, a consistent. The splash plays were always there. They're always there. Consistency was the biggest thing, and right now, he yesterday in the 2-minute. And granted, it's raining and all. I get all of the caveats, but like. Drake May throws a perfectly timed out to him at the sticks, and it just goes right through his hands, right? And he dropped a slant, like, against air earlier on in the practice. Those are the types of plays that if he's going to be a high-volume guy and not just, like, remember, the Gabe Davis comp, like, just have these big games and peaks and valleys. If he's going to be, like, a high-volume, 100-catch guy someday, he's going to have to make these layups. Like, he can make the hard ones. He can make these acrobatic, crazy catches down the field. But if he can't catch the 8-yard out or the 3-step slant over the middle of the field and he's just dropping the ball uncontested, unforced errors, that's why he's not going to see the ball at a high volume. And those are some of the warts with him right now.
Right. He's the kind of player where he's always going to be a boom or bust player.
Yeah.
He's going to make great plays. There's going to be some drops. You hope the good outweighs the bad. He needs to prove the good's going to outweigh the bad. Right now, that ratio not exactly where he needs it to be.
Yeah. All right. Really quickly before we wrap, is there anything else about tomorrow night, first preseason game that you're looking forward to outside of the quarterbacks and things like that?
We touched on a lot of it. I'll have my what to watch for up tomorrow on 98.5thesportshub.com. Just I think the operation as a whole, what coaches are on the sideline, what coaches are in the booth, what coaches are meeting with what group. Like, we've never really had to cover something like that before. Not as a whole, maybe individual coaches, but that part's going to be interesting to me.
I'm with you on that. I find that part kind of fascinating. Like, this is a true dress rehearsal for Gerard Mayo's staff as well as it is for the players. And it might actually be more important from a procedural standpoint. Like we were talking about earlier in the show, calling plays in the huddle and getting to the line of scrimmage and getting the ball snap. I know this all sounds Pop Warner. I get that. But this is the first time that they're truly doing that live with Gerard Mayo, who's calling, where's AVP? Is he up in the booth? Right. Is he on the sideline? I'm assuming he's going to be on the sideline. All these things are now the time where we're going to find out all these things, and it's going to be interesting to see how it's all handled. I don't know how much fourth down they're going to get into decision-making wise, but if there is a decision to make, what does he do, right? Right. Those types of things are going to be fascinating. One more thing before we sign off. The season ticket holder practice is on Sunday. Yeah. And we're going to do a little bit of a show during it. Not us, but me. And Sarge and I think Rob Ninkovich is going to be there. Okay. And I just wanted to tease it a little bit. So we're going to do, I think, about the first hour or so of practice. We're going to have some interviews. We're going to have all three coordinators are going to come talk to us, and we're going to do a Q&A with them.
They're going to let you talk to Van Pelt.
I've already made sure that the questions get cleared by the appropriate representatives. And Gerard Mayo is going to address the crowd. It's going to be a fun day. Yeah. So if you're a season ticket holder, I think Foxborough residents still get in, right? I don't know about that. Don't quote me on that.
Patriots.com.
But if you're a season ticket holder and you're on the fence about coming, they're going to make this a little bit special for you guys. It's not going to just be a regular run-of-the-mill training camp practice where you're just going to sit and watch. And then in between drills and things like that, Sarge and I are going to go back and forth a little bit about what's going on the field, and we'll give some takes and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a fun day. I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, if you're a season ticket holder and you're not sure if you wanted to come, I would suggest coming because it's going to be a little bit more than what you normally get.
There you go.
Cool. All right. Really quickly, two more. Got to pay the bills. Bridgestone, the official tire of the New England Patriots, is proud to partner with Sullivan Tire, New England's headquarters for quality Bridgestone tires. Visit sullivantire.com to find a location near you. And one last time, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. Alex and I will be back next week, same time, same place. We'll talk about tomorrow night. We'll recap the joint practices. We'll look ahead to the Eagles preseason game. So still a lot to get to. We're still in the middle of training camp here, and we're looking forward to it. We'll see you then. Bye.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.